This episode of All Wings Considered is brought to you by Grain. Remember, you should never go against the grain. Available wherever food is harvested. Now, here's Ben and Jason.
No! We're better today
this time.
Hello!
The self-confidence of someone who probably still screwed something up about the audio.
Watch it not really be on anyways. We'll find out very, very soon enough.
Hey everybody, welcome to All Wings Considered. I am your host, Loaf, and I'm joined as always by your other host,
Dunderdall.
Ah! And we are here to talk about nonsense for what's, let's face it, going to be a couple hours.
Yeah, well, I heard one about to come out of your mouth. That's only if we're going very, very fast.
No, we've got a whole lot of nonsense today, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun.
Great nonsense.
And you'll learn something.
Always. Always. We always learn something, right?
So, how was your week?
My week's been pretty good. You know, I got around, finally, I finished playing Halos 1 through 3.
Okay.
A
fair number of Halos.
It is a fair number of Halos. One thing I discovered was that because Halo 2 has been remastered, it actually looks better than 3, which is kind of weird. One character's face changes drastically as a result, so it's kind of cool, but it was a lot of fun to go through.
Hey, you're talking to someone who's played Super Wing Commander, so I know.
Oh, yeah, about faces changing, yeah. This is a bit of a drastic redrawing of Miranda Key's face, but it's okay. But it was good. I had a lot of fun. We've had most of the week's been kind of put aside for this.
Yeah, we've got a big show. We're going to play as many as four different Origin games tonight. And we've got a lot to talk about. I've been doing some Wing Commander nonsense we're going to get into in just a minute. We had a giant technical disaster yesterday when the SSD that the show is stored on decided to not be an SSD anymore. But,
oh, no, well, it went full solid state almost. Melted together.
But... Luckily, computers today are basically just Legos. I'm so used to adjusting the jumpers on a LAPCI or something,
or holding on to a piece of metal as you touch anything for fear of exploding it.
Yeah, figuring out why smoke is coming out of something. But
today that doesn't matter. You can juggle it while being fully statically charged, and it's a-okay. It's very strange, the world we live in, right? It's a new place. But what else has happened in our wonderful week?
Well, as usual, when we started out here, we like to kind of art bell it where we would put the slideshows I've made over the chat. But, as we've collected feedback over the last few weeks, we've kind of realized people don't care about our faces so much. They just want to see our stuff.
Unless there's a knits over my face. That was very well received by everyone.
Knits?
Knits? I don't know how you
say
Zen? Listen, you're the
don't
English
send
major.
him to the deli.
No. Definitely not.
So, to solve this problem, let me just introduce...
You should have had a drum roll sound. Nobody sounds. I don't want to do that too much because I know how it sounds on the microphone.
The Afterburner Slideshow!
Go full burners!
And if you think this is the stupidest thing I've done this week...
You are wrong!
You don't know me.
You are wrong.
I'll tell you right now as we get into this presentation, I have a button here labeled Wiggle Train, and I will press it eventually.
That's right. What a great discovery that oddly was.
I've all sorts of Wing Commander stuff right now. First of all, I'm going to warn everybody, this first one is a spoiler for the last week's episode of Star Trek Discovery. If you are following Star Trek Discovery and are more than a week behind, close your ears and eyes right now, because I'm going to show you the big reveal from the last episode, which leads into the first Stupid Wing Commander thing I did last week.
And I will just say that I can sit here, because I've been watching it with you guys.
Yeah, in fact, we're going to watch the new one right after this.
That's true.
Here we go. So this is the big reveal, this particular screen in Star Trek Discovery. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's really exciting for Star Trek fans. But
yes, watching your reaction live last week as I watched the gears turn, then you discovered... And then he took off running.
So, yeah, I did a show with my brother where we talk about Star Trek. But of course, that also reminded me of something else, which is the password for the first episode of Secret Ops. Yep. So I loaded Secret Ops up to this computer. Apparently, programs designed for Windows 95 don't especially run great. I didn't,
It's
install
a
any of the
weird-
OpenGL stuff, so there were like missing textures. So I played through the first episode. I actually had to find like a German FTP site that still had the episodic releases instead of the full thing, and so I could get the password.
Yeah, well, the password itself was another ordeal.
I played through, and of course I got Acheron. No!
Oh.
It turns out the one I'm thinking of is the losing password, so I had to play again.
Oh no!
At this point, it's like
That's okay,
Monday
though.
morning at 5 a.m. or something, and I'm like, I'm going to get this. Anyway. Talos 4! There we go!
Oh, hey.
Wing Commander did it first, question mark.
Wow, I was unaware.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even. It's funny. I think I just powered through them, so I don't even remember if I recalled any of the passwords like that.
I remember that because they're all super geeky sci-fi references. In fact, Acheron is the LV-426 Planet from Aliens. It's the formal name for it. So.
Gotcha.
So how was that for the first use of the Afterburner slideshow?
I think we're burning fuel fast.
And now for a slightly sadder, significantly sadder one.
Well, I guess put on your serious face.
Yeah, seriously. No, of course, the big news this week in general media was that Luke Perry passed away and surprised everybody because even if you didn't love 90210 or you
were
just
aware.
seemed like a really...
No, if you were our
solid guy.
age,
Yeah.
you were our age, it's something that you could not escape.
No, and I remember doing... I was recovering from eye surgery in high school, and they showed like 2 or 4 episodes of 90210 a day, and I was stuck there unable to move, so I knew the whole series by the time that was done.
Man.
But I wanted to share his slight connection to Wing Commander, which is that he voiced Sub-Zero in the Mortal Kombat Defenders of the Realm animated series, which, as people who are obsessed with animated series from the mid-90s based on video games may know, had a weird crossover with Wing Commander.
It is a weird thing.
In which a space Viking voiced by Michael Dorn, traveled from episode to episode of first Street Fighter, then a show called Savage Dragon, then Mortal Kombat, and then Wing Commander, and he's chasing a magic orb. So, if you want the most relevant, Wing Commander relevant Luke Perry performance,
Gotta find it.
It's an episode called Resurrection of this show, and he's currently being tortured by the orb because it's made it really hot, and he's Sub-Zero, and he's supposed to be cool. So that's our sad note plus interesting trivia.
That was some interesting trivia. I will not lie.
And then I have some follow-ups to stuff we did last week. Yes, this is exciting privateer stuff.
And it was funny because I said, hey, Loaf, do you think they could ever add these back? And that kind of triggered
Yeah, we looked at all sorts
tsunami,
of stuff.
and I don't even know what it caused you to do.
So we've got a bunch of privateer things to show you. The first one is just an interesting little note that I had never seen before, privateer. Everybody I tell this to is like, oh, I knew about that, but I'm going to show you anyway, which is just in the release build of privateer, the sensors change, the physical radar image changes depending on which scanner you have. And I don't know of anyone who's ever bought any of the Hunter level scanners because it's such an iterative increase. You have the crummy all gray grayscale one, and then you save up for an Omni. But if you know, so there's the basic scanner, the radar of the screen on the right. Basic. Yeah.
What's weird is
Hunter.
I feel like the only time you may have bought a Hunter is when you first got the game and didn't know
when you were being totally honest
if you had no clue. I feel like as a kid I might have done it thinking, oh, well, I have to buy them in order. Not really understanding how economics work.
So there's the Hunter. It has two triangles on the left. And here is the Omni, which everybody knows because that's the good one.
Yes, that's the one everybody remembers.
I thought that was super interesting. I'd never noticed that casually playing before.
Yeah.
But the big thing with Privateer last week was our discovery of, in that early screenshot,
the truck.
We showed this to you live last time.
Yes.
Where this is a pre-release screenshot of Privateer that was used for marketing. And if you compare it to the final release, there's no truck. There was originally a very terrestrial-looking truck. I think the model is probably created for Strike Commander or something similar. And to save disk space, or maybe there was some truck bug. No, it's definitely to save disk space. They removed that from the final game, so there's no animation at Oxford. So we started looking through the Wing Commander 3D files that were preserved from Origin. It's a directory of Wing Commander 3D meshes and so on. And AD, or AD as sometimes, managed to find, hidden in there was no separate mesh for the truck, but he managed to find hidden in an incomplete landing pad the truck.
Yeah.
So now we have a
fuel Bowser.
A 3D. It's called Refueler. The actual object is called Refueler, and we have a 3D object of it, so we could look at this truck really close.
That's a sweet fuel Bowser.
And on one hand, yeah. But on the other hand, it's insane the amount of detail that went into the slightest thing in the background of Privateer. Captain Johnny says, wherever do you get those 3D files? And I don't know if we're allowed to say at this point, but probably no one will get in trouble. But it was from him.
We got them from watching you.
Yeah,
okay?
We spent many years as like teenagers and then early 20s like, I don't know where these came from. Wink. But
yep,
there we go.
I was gonna say, is there a head modeled in there, or is it just the bottom part of the body?
I don't know. I didn't look close enough.
Well, if you look in the window, right, does it look like he's headless?
No, he's got a head in there.
But is it unmodeled or something?
There's no texture on it.
Okay, so he's
we'll see that on all the Privateer models.
He's got a gray face.
So that getting to see the truck up close was understandably a massive thrill to me personally, because I love looking at trucks.
Yeah, you have an entire truck room over there in the house.
So realizing that we had this one truck, I figured, can we look up close at the other vehicles from Privateer from the various landing scenes? Because if you play the game, Newcastle, Antinople, New Detroit, they still have the animations of vehicles flying around that were apparently removed from Oxford. Yep. And the answer is that yes, we can. And now we're going to show them to you.
Because that's what we do.
So here we have, this is the mining base. It was Mining Bay's Pirate Base, and it has a little truck that pulls a trailer. Yep. And this one is called Truck. This is the actual truck. The other one's Refueler. And here it is up close.
I think I've seen it at the airport. Mm-hmm. Almost run me over a few times, right?
And there's the cart it pulls. Yeah. And this fellow makes another appearance on Perry. And it's pulling its little cart with cargo. Generic cargo. That could be full of delicious grain.
Yeah, grain. It's good for you. I always love that one just because of how obscenely large the cargo hold is compared to the rest of the model. It's just awesome how just ridiculous it is.
And there's a variant of that which you can see in the software upgrade area, the ship part store, component store. I don't know.
Ship dealer. Just call it the ship dealer.
The component section of the ship dealer. And it gets covered up by the little thing that's around us as it comes up. But you can see it there. We also found it in a bunch of the different landing pad models. So apparently they wanted to have it doing little animations outside the ships and then ended up cutting it.
Probably towing it around.
So that's Loader.
Yeah. There
it is up close. It's got a little Canadarm type thing.
Right? To help load up your missile. All those MREX you need for the Talons. Put your guns on. So
let's look at some of the individual planets and the stuff that's on them. Here we have New Detroit. There's the
DeLorean.
Blade Runner DeLorean, we'll call it.
Sure. Yep.
This is the ground level part of New Detroit, and if you're watching this live, it rolls up in the corner, and then it DeLoreans its wheels and flies off. And get a close look at this guy, and he is super interesting.
He's packing heat.
It is packing heat. This is a space car DeLorean with a plasma gun.
Yeah.
Here it is in road mode. Ooh. And here it is. You can see it has one plasma gun instead of it's not on both sides. But this is the game I want to play.
Just driver's side.
I want to play the New Detroit game where you ride around,
you hunt the streets,
and blow up other flying cars.
That doesn't sound good.
Then we have the top part of the landing pad in New Detroit. If you look up there at the top right, there's an air car. And there's a close look at the air car, which says Innoville on it.
Plenty of seating. Mm-hmm. Nice front room.
Yeah, that's a comfortable air car. Yeah,
very spacious.
I just love these details. And we're even going to see a ship we've never seen from the Wing Commander universe before in just a minute. So get ready for that. And it's going to be so disappointing. Here's a variant of this, which is not in the game, which is like a butt-shaped air car. Yeah, I thought I would render that out.
What's weird is that it looks like it has fewer seats inside, too. It's like you don't want to be near your significant other.
Here is another one of the. There's a whole bunch of. There's two types of cars in this upper screen, and you can see there's an even more DeLorean-looking flying car up in the corner, up in the top center right there.
Yep.
And if we look close at that, it's a model called Jacko.3DS. So the rest of them all have names like Aircar or Truck. And this one's Jacko.
Refueler.
So there's Jacko, the police-ish DeLorean. I said Stecker's DeLorean.
Yep, I go with that. Seems appropriate. Seems appropriate.
That's New Detroit.
Oh, apparently that means you should know. It was French for fly, apparently, according to Ad.
Okay. I didn't even notice that.
Oh. Ha ha ha. We learn something new all the time.
Now let's go to the capital of the Gemini sector, New Detroit. And you're thinking, oh, there's that same car again. It's driving.
Yeah, it looks very similar.
But you're wrong. Oh, there it is going the other way. But you're wrong. It's actually different. It's got bigger chuds on top.
It's got bigger intakes, and
it's shorter. This is like the compact. But I think it's cool to think about what cars look like in the Wing Commander universe.
Yeah.
And here's the one that really made me super interested in me, because if you look at the top left next to that circle, there is this little circle thing that goes back and forth. And again, if I were doing this today, I would hand draw the animation. It would be really easy. But they rendered this whole scene, and there it is. A ship we've never thought. We've never put this in like a Jane's section because we didn't know what it was until we looked up close. It's a little shuttle pod like you'd have at Starfleet Command.
It almost reminds me of, isn't there shuttle pods like that in False Colors when they're refurbishing the Karga?
Yeah,
they use something similar to that. They talk about the ones with the arms that one gets cracked up.
Yeah. And here,
oh boy,
we're getting to the good one. Here we have
put your kids to bed.
Well, here's the train, and the train. If you notice, it goes from scene to scene in Oxford. So if you click on it, it drives away, and then it comes down to the bottom left corner and lets people off. And here it is.
Yes.
And I know that's super thrilling.
What happened to our train?
So not high-res details in the train. Although if you do turn around and look at the back, there's more clear details on the back, because I guess that's the one part you see the most as it drives away. But that train convinced our good friend Mr. Trelane to do some kind of computer magic that made it wiggle. I woke up the other morning and he was like, I've been working too long on this. And it was some algorithm or math or something. Maybe he'll tell us in the chat so I don't sound like such an idiot. But it made the train wiggle.
Yes.
So
wiggle it just a little bit.
So of course I had to do this. No?
What did you do?
Oh god, Wiggle Train isn't loading. Hold on.
Oh, so while we're waiting for Wiggle Train to be properly loaded, we did run through the show prior to this when I arrived. But there you go. Wiggle it just a little bit.
There you go. I pressed the Wiggle Train button.
Let's see. Let's make sure. There it is. Make sure it showed up on the live. Excellent.
And then the very last thing, as I was looking through those old models, is I pulled out a bunch of components that were removed from Privateer, and I thought I would share them because they're super interesting. Stuff that never was. Yes, Wiggle Train. Wiggle Train is going over great in chat, guys.
Yep. Wiggle Train's probably going to somehow be incorporated into some part of the show down the line. I'm sure we'll figure out something for it to do.
You'll have a button that we press that makes it appear.
Everybody wiggle at the Wiggle Train. That's right. All right, let's get down to business, because this is I feel like you're just overkilling. How fast do you need to launch Imrex to kill Talons?
Yeah, I can see why this would have been cut from a design standpoint. It would be a double missile launcher, so you would buy it later in the game, and you would have twice as many missiles. Sure. But that's an understandable thing to cut. Second big set of things is EMP cloak stuff that was in the original design for Privateer, and it made it fairly a long way. This is an EMP counter missile. Here's the EMP, the internal cloaking thing, which got reused as the art for the maneuvering thrusters when they take damage.
Which is so weird when you think about it, because it looked like you think maneuvering thrusters.
That looks like a maneuvering thruster.
It's got all those nozzles.
Yeah, sure.
That's what it is, of course.
Yeah, there's no thing on your ship that has those novels. There's nozzles stuck out. So there's
nothing else to think about but jets.
And the big cut that happened with all the cloak stuff that was taken out was the removal of the Straka, because they had a fully rendered Privateer Straka all ready to go.
Look at that!
And if you look at some of the old manual art that was not used, the line drawings they commissioned for the manual, those all they have the Straka. It's in there, so they've made it quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we have jump drives. The original design for Privateer had, instead of just you earn your jump drive and you're out in the galaxy, there were 3 levels. And the difference would have been, of course, price, but also number of jumps they could make, which would have let you give kind of an artificial moat. So in Privateer, there's basically the starter system Troy, where everything's easier, and then everything else is impossibly hard once you're in your jump drive. Originally, you could have designed it so that, if you had a single-use jump drive, you'd be stuck in this section of space because there would be you would never be able to get to New Constantinople because it was more than 2 jumps away, and there was bases without a place to refuel. And the same.
That would have been awful. Getting trapped somewhere.
Well, it would have extended that early game instead.
Sure,
but
well, So then, what you're saying is the larger jump drive would give you more jumps.
Yeah. And in fact, if you look at the jump scanner in Privateer, I think it has 14 slots and it uses 2 slots each time.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it would have impacted that.
Yeah, because normally you get 6 jumps with your jump.
Yeah. You get 6 jumps, so there would have been a 3 and a 1.
Okay. Ooh, that would have.
And here is a Mace tactical nuclear missile. One thing that always sticks out in Privateer is that there's not much to do with the torpedo launcher. You have to choose between a torpedo launcher and a missile launcher, and the impetus for the player is to go for the torpedo launcher only because it's cheaper to arm torpedoes. But originally there would have been a larger, Mace-style nuclear missile that would have been a more expensive thing to put in the torpedo launcher.
Yeah, torpedo launchers would have been is kind of the weird thing about it's one of those things that's kind of a cool idea, but you never really because
I was always budget conscious. I always use the torpedo launcher. I
really?
never bought missiles.
Huh? I once again I think only my first few playthroughs before I fully understood the game is when I would use a torpedo launcher, or when I'm like I'm gonna go hunt Kamex, and then you don't find that many.
And here, just last but not least, just a close-up render or ray trace of the human slaves cargo component, which I just thought was interesting. All right.
Yep.
And that is it for this edition of Afterburner Slideshow.
Sound effects.
Mm-hmm.
That's next steps.
Oh, sound effects? You want to hear a sound effect? Well, let's go to the news.
Oh.
Haha, we got sound effects in the news.
And that wasn't me.
No, I mean, you're good at that, but
thank you.
You're not Privateer too good.
That's very true. I am not. I am not.
So it's been a slow week for Wing Commander news, but we've got 2 stories from CIC. This is the part of the show where we share the Wing Commander news from the past week. And story number 1, Ice Blade's Discord-based Wing Commander Mush. We used to call them Mushes. They go to say RPG now. Has a new combat bot, which lets you have fighter combat simulated in Discord. And there's a write-up of it on the CIC if you want more information. And he's moving on to work on capital ship mechanics. So, and that Discord looks like a lot of fun. I joined. I have no ability for mushes, but I do watch in there.
Yeah.
And our second story this week is Defiance Industries has created this cool new wallpaper.
That is
beautiful.
This
is a Wing Commander 1 and 2 paint-schemed version of the Yorktown-class light carrier from Wing Commander 3, which theoretically would have been around back then. We just don't see it in the game. The Victory is an old ship, so this is what it might have looked like then. This is the mid-war version of its paint scheme, and he posted some cool renders of that.
Those, there's something about that paint scheme that is really nice.
I do love the old green. I don't know what it's for. If you read Action Stations, they give the ships a white paint scheme in the early war.
They go for that
30s.
The pre-war colors.
It's like that Great White Fleet.
Yeah, so because why do you paint them white? So you can always see them because it's not for war.
So beautiful spaceships. That's what
we're here for.
Absolutely. And we can play the Privateer 2 email sound whenever we want.
Nice. Our first sound effect.
First sound effect, yes.
Excellent.
So, as I said, we've got a really big week.
Really big show. I think
really
it's a shoe. Is that how Johnny said it? Really big shoe or show?
Kids today have no idea what we're talking about.
Nope.
And it's probably for the best.
There's only one, so we're okay.
So we're going to start off by playing just a little bit of Special Operations 1. Because, if we don't get a little bit further each time, we don't get paid.
We will always be here.
So let's jump back into our gameplay boxes.
Oh, hello.
I'm going to open up.
Is there I'm supposed to look up at you?
What's that? Oh, yeah, you have to look up now because now you're down
hello,
there.
Ben. How are you? Yeah, the art is really great. I really like what he's take those. When you take ships out of their normal time frame and you kind of put different paint schemes on it, stuff like that, it is really cool. You know, it'd certainly be funky to see something like a Bengal in Wing Commander 3 colors.
In fact, one of my favorite references in End Run, which we'll be talking about later, is there's a mention that a particular Sartha is in ground camo colors. And what does that mean?
Yeah, even when I was rereading it today a little bit, I did think of that too. Like, I just pictured it kind of like, you know, in the Pacific where you have zeros that are whites and then you have maybe a mixed camo color a little bit.
All right, you ready for some acting?
Oh. Yes, I was wondering why you were paused like that.
No, I was waiting to make sure that
I was
ready to act.
All right, so I'll be Blair this time since you're Blair last time, and you can... All right.
Just like marriage.
Yeah, there you go.
So last time we did the first two missions of Gorkar Series 1, Special Operations 1. Now we're continuing with the third one. We're here to help the rebels and the Confederation forces here get ready to defend against a Kirathi invasion that's headed their way, apparently.
Yeah. I don't like your tone, Major. If you have a problem working with me, let's talk about it now.
I don't want to talk about it, sir.
It's an order, Major, not a request. Start talking. So you have the Southern coming out for you.
Colonel, when you transferred aboard the Concordia, all I could think of was I was serving with the Coward of Katithrak Mang. I don't know why I keep going Southern. It reminded me of everything that I'd done wrong.
What are you talking about, Major? Oh, I almost went angry there.
4 years ago, I was comm officer on the TCS Kursk. We were on a mission in the Hell's Kitchen system. Wing Commander 1 callback. Trying to slip past enemy patrols and destroy a Kirathi starbase. What has happened to the Vega sector in the last 10 years? There's a Kirathi starbase in the... Okay. But the Kirathi are using a new code. I didn't unscramble it correctly. I thought the enemy hadn't detected us yet, that they didn't know our location. Suddenly, we were surrounded by squadrons of enemy fighters.
Mistakes happen, Major.
That mistake killed 2,000 people, Colonel.
Jeez, you screwed up.
I spent 6 months in a burn ward afterwards.
Oh, that's extreme.
They rebuilt my face and I was reassigned to the Concordia.
Looking good.
And then you transferred aboard the Concordia. Every time I saw you, all I could think of was the TCS Kursk and my mistake.
I'm sorry, Major. I never heard about that incident.
I don't need your pity, sir. Just leave me alone and let me do my job.
Very well, Major. Dismissed.
And that is how we learn that Major Edmonds is never be.
She seems very upset with you.
Yeah,
she
we did nothing.
It's her mystery.
Yeah, we reminded her she'd shoot something up. And then it turned out we didn't screw anything up in the first place. No.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Flight deck, Olympus Station, Gorakar system. I have another mission for you, Colson. Hope's just returned from his assignment downstairs on Gorakar.
What is that?
Where he's organizing the resistance and training the rebel leaders. He's returning with a team of young human pilots who'll command the Gorakar squadrons. I want them to learn from you, your combat tactics, your style of command. And I want them to learn how to stay alive in combat.
Are you a Scottish pirate?
I am going to pirate. I'm going from Scottish to pirate. Your main objective is to keep the boys alive, Calcine. We need them to lead the resistance. That's more important than any scurrying and kills in this mission. Hobbs has already launched. His team will meet you at Nav 1. You'll patrol through Nav 2 and return via Nav 3. Good luck, Calcine. Dismissed.
Wow, I had a big acting part there.
Oh, yeah. It's
Yeah. Apparently this is the mission where Blair just gets kind of lectured by Edmonds and then told what to do.
My question is, why does Olympus Station have a saber that says Concordia on the side?
Well, didn't they fly these in?
No, I arrived in a crossbow. They've
that's
taken my
right.
much better. Now, one thing I know about this mission is, he specifically told me I should go to nav 1 and then help him to the other nav points.
Yep.
I've got to put my space helmet on.
Yes, you should.
It's much easier if you don't do that.
Oh. Yes, that's how we do things. We don't... Loaf is very big onto doing the nav points in weird ways and all that. I just suffer. Just suffer.
That's your lot in life.
We all have to have something, right? Let's see. Oh, Shakili. These are the guys originally in Wing Commander 2's Gorokar mission series that made me so frustrated on that Hobbs mission that I gave up playing for a while as a child or as a young teenager. And it took me quite a while to go back.
Yes, as we've noticed before, the balance on this one is not amazing.
No, not always the best. Well, at least you're not flying with Epi wingmen who are more dangerous than the enemy.
No, the big thing about this series is that we're going to get to the end of the Gorokar missions in a week or two, and then we're going to be stuck on that finale. Wow, Hobbs is kicking ass. I mean,
yeah.
But
Yes.
Can we say ass in this show?
I think so. Are you talking about the work animal? I have 50 asses carrying our grain up the mountain to the spaceport.
Well,
I believe that's acceptable.
I was saying, in the time it took us to discuss asses, Hobbs abandoned us. So
Wow, you went from wow, Hobbs, you're really kicking it to running away.
could he be a traitor?
I don't know. I don't know. It's one of those things.
I mean, that would make sense, right? That would be a plot point that would make sense.
I guess so. I mean, it just seems too obvious, though, to do that. I think it's that lady who spent some time in the Karate POW camp.
By the way, it was tough for me to press the nav button because my computer's damaged.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I did my classic mistake of ramming a ship as it was destroyed.
Well, what that happens to somebody else when we'll talk about end run later. Someone's cockpit get rammed when some debris hits it. Right?
Oh.
Yeah, it will be. We'll have to make sure to build the final secret or Special Operations 1 mission with some extra time.
It could be an all-day live stream of that.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
It's the last mission of this is the hardest mission in all of Wing Commander, and not for a rewarding way. Something like
Kurosawa 2
Kurosawa 2. At least there's a strategy to it, and it's harder than I think the designers intended because it doesn't have a different profile for the Relari. But you feel accomplished when you do it. With Special Ops 1, you just feel like
thank God that's over.
Like you got lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, like you're trying all the tricks, you're trying weird things because doing it a proper way will most likely end in defeat and not success. You have to, from the tricks of trying to get them to shoot each other, flying in the middle of them, it's a lot that you have to try to pull off. That I imagine that's one where we will be switching seats, and I imagine more than once in anger. A little frustration. Yeah, you have managed to just about damage every aspect of your fighter there, sir.
Yes, unfortunately my shield...
Yeah, but your shields are still up, so you're not...
No,
thankfully...
this track has died.
Oh. That's not good. Well, thankfully it's only a Kamek that you got up to, so... Those Sarthas again, something we'll be mentioning later.
I'm going to stay out of that KMX way for just a moment. Because I don't know how my shields are. So,
yeah.
Well,
who's pinging you? Oh, it's the flak coming. Oh, lasers. Okay. Let's... Adios, Kamek. your turret damage too?
Apparently, I've lost my turret guns.
I was gonna say I didn't know if it was turret, if you had that, or if it switched over, you had clicked and just switched quickly over to tractor beam or something. But yeah, you had no targeting reticle, so maybe it does. Oh, just a bit outside.
Let's try that one more time.
Yep. We planned for this a bit. Put in some time for this, right?
Oh yeah, we don't have a show packed with nonsense at all.
No, nonsense is not the word we go for. Look at that beautiful background planet. Jalke or Jalke or however you...
I say Jalke, but
Jalke, I guess.
Jalke.
They're fighters that aren't too difficult, but they're just sometimes damage sponges almost, and their turret.
Yeah, they take more damage than I seem to.
Yeah, they're a little bit, because they're not really that hard of enemies. It's just that they have a few little attributes that make them a real pain to go after.
They're not as bad as Grit Cats. At least they've got the bigger profile.
Yes. Yeah, they're a massive. It's like the wow, you just flew through all.
And
that
again, I took hit from their.
Yeah,
after dying.
I've not seen somebody take that much. It's like every piece just hit you. Well, at least you have guns. That's good. Oh, that did not look good. There was there's Badness City.
I ain't firing no torpedoes, that's for sure.
Not today, sir. Not today. Uh-oh. Yeah, you are.
I require your assistance.
There we go.
Hobbs requires my assistance.
Of course you do, Hobbs, because you're a traitor. It's okay.
Alright, let's go to Nav2.
Here we go.
And look, Hobbs is with us this time. Maybe it won't be such a... No, it's going to be terrible.
No. Colonel, I think you need to be more enthusiastic. At least you don't have Doomsday on you. Hey,
I'm my own doomsday.
I think we're all gonna die right now. His voice is great, though. I really love the voice acting in that, because it's just like, why are you at the front lines? Are you just letting Hobbs do the work right now?
No, he's requiring my assistance, actually.
Oh, I see him over there.
They seem to be all over him rather than me, which...
Yeah, they were not bothering you for a bit there.
Whoops.
Yeah, well, you have a new horde orbit now. Yeah,
let's just stump those FFs.
Yeah. Put those pilums out there. I don't know why it wouldn't launch that other one. There it goes.
There we go.
There it goes. Sweat beating up.
Hobbs requires my assistance.
Yes, Hobbs, we know. You're not lucky enough to have a computer that works. Come on, you know that.
Time to die, human.
Yeah,
He's running.
He's running.
Where is he?
Oh, I was gonna say, I don't know if he was running or chasing Hobbs.
No, Hobbs is over here with me.
Okay, it looks like you have... No, you have two Sartha left. There's another one.
Yeah,
somewhere.
two Sartha and...
That one's not bothering you. He's... Just almost put a few rounds through Hobbs.
I require your assistance.
Cobb, shut up. Come on, dude.
You're my wingman. You're not. I'm not your wingman. You're supposed to be helping me. All right? That's how this is supposed to be working. There you go. At least you have the turret this time around. Always a bonus. Always a bonus. Bum, 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 bum. I love how you keep hitting lock. Like, your machine. Remember that dangerous smoke you were talking about earlier? Your computer is definitely smoking now. So long, sucker.
still require my assistance, Hobbs?
Yep, he needs you to fly his ship, basically. He's not being the most useful. Kind of like in that other Gorokor mission, because you fly with him as well, and he's not that useful.
All right, let's go to Nav 1 and meet the young pilots who were supposed to be escorting this whole time.
Hey, by the way, guys, I did all the work for you. We have Star with 2 R's.
As Starlong from...
okay.
Or he was ordering QA at the time, and he runs Shroud of the Avatar now. Rhino, I don't know who that one is, but Caffarelli is Charles Caffarelli, another developer on this game. Mm-hmm. And, sorry guys, you don't actually get a training mission.
Yep.
But I will teach you my secrets of command later, which is C, and then I have several options for what I can command people.
Nice. Very nice.
Mike says, unlike you, they have tail gunners. I do have a tail gunner. He's just not very good.
He just fires...
Call sign, this is Olympus. Your report.
Oh, that's me. Crap.
No, that's you.
Oh. I rendezvoused with the kids and were continued on the patrol. There were a lot of Kilrathi out there, more than I expected. There was a Kamek and wing of Sarth at Nav 2. A wing of Jetke were waiting to ambush us at Nav 3. All the kids did just fine on the field trip, Olympus. He is really being insulting to them.
You are cleared to land, PC name.
Calling them kids over and over again? It's like calling them pups or something.
Darn pups.
Oh, silly pups.
Glad you made it back alive, sir.
Which is really what you want to hear. Like, thanks? All right.
All right. Not too bad. Not
No,
too bad.
Good. That was good. It's good. Yep, Nuggets is another one, Captain Shawnee. Yep. Yeah.
Or plebes.
Plebes, yep.
You want to do another one, or should we continue on our...
No.
adventures?
Continue what we have to continue on.
Oh, okay, we do have a long program. Okay. So that was it for Special Operations 1 this week.
Yes,
But,
we are... Just to make sure, we are 3 minutes under where we told.
Wow, okay.
So that's why, yeah, we're ahead of schedule, so I'm trying to keep this government train moving. This train's got to keep wiggling. Right?
Good. You're getting good at this.
That's right. Well, I figured it out now. I understand. I have to be more of the...
So before we go on to the next stage of Wheeling Train, I want to talk about next week's show for just a minute. I can't believe this, and I'm sure you can't believe it. I'm sure no one can believe this, but next week, March 12th, is the 20th anniversary of the Wing Commander movie.
Thanks for making us feel old.
Yes, we feel very, very old, and no matter what you think about the Wing Commander movie, you do have to agree that it is a Wing Commander movie.
It is.
And we will definitely be talking about it next week. Yep. And I'm just going to give you a little trailer. This is the international trailer that once took down the CIC and Ultima Online.
Yeah.
So check it out.
March 15th, Earth year 2454. Earth's defenses are threatened.
Message from Health Command.
They don't believe they can withstand a Kilrathi battle group without the support of the fleet.
This tactical schematic outlines a nightmare. We need to buy our fleet 2 hours.
And only a team of young fighter pilots stands between Earth and destruction.
Lieutenant J.G. Christopher Blair, reporting for duty, sir. Todd, Maniac Marshal. At your service, ma'am.
Lieutenant Commander Deborah, your wing commander.
Let's get those kids' hands down.
All right, ladies, let's do it. Likelihood you're going to die out here. We're all going to die out here, but none of us need to be reminded of that fact.
Give him a broadside, this is your own. Open fire!
If you endanger another pilot, you're dead. Emotion gets in the way.
Commander, emotion is what separates us from the Kilrathi. I don't think I can. I don't have the faith. It's not faith. Let's make our miracle. I made it!
Wing
There we go.
That was pretty cool. I'm going to thank AD for recutting that. He took the... Oh, someone's knocking on the door. What could this be?
I think this came for you.
What is this?
What's this? Oh my gosh.
This is a gigantic mystery box.
That is something else. That looks very dangerous, and yeah, I don't know what that could possibly do, and I'm such a good actor, you all believe me, so...
I didn't know. I thought the mystery box had something in the box.
No, I think it's the box itself. And yeah, what do you got there? Is there how do you?
You want me to hit it?
I don't know. That looks dangerous. I don't know if you should press that.
I guess we should.
What? Why?
Where
are we? This is such a... I don't know what's going on here.
What has happened? This does not look right at all. Why is there a guy with a sword?
Oh my gosh. We must somehow been transported to the fantastic world of Ultima.
Get out of town.
Well...
Where have we jumped?
Yes, we... my foolish companion here has pressed the button, and now we are... Ultima.
Yeah.
Perhaps we should explore this exciting land.
Why? What do you think we might encounter in this world?
I don't know. Let's see if there's a gameplay frame. Oh, it is I, Benjamus, the Avatar.
Oh, hello! It is Jasonicus. Me.
Well, let's just take a little look around here.
Why don't we?
Perhaps there'll be something relevant to Wing Commander in some way in this strange new world.
I mean, the jump drive, where else would it jump us to except somewhere?
It would have to be somewhere connected to the Wing Commander universe.
There does need to be a terminus at the end, right? We need a jump point to come out of.
That makes sense to me.
Although we will be talking about it. Sometimes jump points can shift, and you never know where you might end up. But that's for the future.
Ultima 7, the Black Gate.
The Forge of Virtue. And I was also waiting for it to appear on that screen to make sure everything was going.
Yeah, we do that a lot.
We often don't know what exactly is transpiring until it transpires in your realm.
Why, look, here we are in front of a castle. Let's,
My goodness.
Yeah, this is Ultima
and
7.
We're walking.
Yeah, we're walking. This is Britannia, Britain, the capital of Britannia. This is, for me anyway, this is the ultimate RPG. This was the greatest RPG ever made, and we're just gonna check out just a moment of it.
We are.
Yeah, see what we can find.
Yes, I have also.
What's that? Is that grain?
Oh my, grain!
Whoa!
Remember, it's good for you.
I love grain personally. All right, so there's.
Yeah, we're in the pocket of Big Carb. Don't you worry.
Oh, some mud.
Yeah, I feel like my dad used to play the earliest versions because I remember him having a lot of games, and I'm like, I don't understand this, Dad. And I think they were the early Ultimas because they came out for Mac, right? Too.
Yeah. Speaking of Mac, let's talk to this fellow.
Oh, sure. Hello.
You see a farmer with wild eyes widened in excitement. Do you want to read for him, or
I'll be the farmer.
Okay. Name.
I am Mac. Oh, how appropriate.
Job.
I am a farmer, though most folks you bastard, just call me a lunatic.
Farmer.
On my farm, I raise chickens and grow vegetables. If thou dost need work, talk to me. What do you think of?
Lunatic?
Thou dost also think, eh? But I tell thee what I say is true. There are creatures visiting us from another place in the stars.
That's us. We're from another place in the stars.
We did. We just showed up here. I have seen them.
Creatures.
They're big, mean, ugly lion tigers. Or is it tiger lions? They are ferocious and they want to eat us.
Another place?
All I can say is that there are certainly no such creatures in this world. Nor is their ship like any that I have seen anywhere in Britannia.
seen them?
With mine own eyes, I have seen a star creature and the inexplicable conveyance which enabled it to travel to Britannia. I don't know what accent I'm going with. I swear to thee, I am completely sane. I have proof.
Proof?
Go and look behind my farm in the middle of the field. Take a look for thyself, and thou shalt see my proof.
Well, we better check this out. That sounds really interesting. Do you think this is his farm here with the grain?
I don't know. Do you think grain is
what's this up here?
I don't know. That's not where I would have thought the back of his farm was. I'm glad you figured this out.
I feel I've been here before.
Oh,
I can click on that and... Interesting. I think that as a traveler from the stars myself, I can identify that as a Karathi Bloodfang heavy fighter.
I believe you are correct.
Similar to the one Prince Thrakath flew.
You can almost say it's a Bloodfang Mark 1.
It is kind of small, Captain John.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to call it a Mark 2 because the Wing Commander 2 rolling demo had an earlier looking one.
Oh. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but if you start the Wing Commander 2 demo, there's a Wing Commander 1 looking Bloodfang that you see Thrakath fly to the base in the intro, and it's cuffed in the final game.
Isn't it funny how we've talked about the scale and size of fighters in the other games are a bit big, and yet here we are, and he's not large enough to fit inside the Bloodfang. Yes.
Well, we've
Captain
seen
Johnny.
Proof. Let's go talk to Mac here.
Oh, Return of the Mac.
That's you can't feel bad after you listen to that song. Come back here.
Oh, yeah, where am I going?
The NPCs like to run away.
Avatar, thou hast returned!
Exclaims Mac.
Exclaims me.
Proof.
I told thee I was not loony. Did thou see the proof?
Yes.
Did I tell thee that I am no loony? Yeah, I said that. Still, my story of how I did come across this thing is beyond belief. It's in your grain, bro.
Grain is amazing. Grain is anything.
Grain is good. I like to stay up late. Sometimes I see bright lights flash across the sky. None of it pays them any mind. But one night I see this bright light come crashing down, and it lands in my field.
Bright lights?
I always watch for moving bright lights in the night sky. That is part of why people in the town say, I'm a loony. But is what I do so different from what they do in the orrery? I don't want to know.
It's the way you watch a place where you watch the movement of the planets to predict the future.
Oh, okay.
Lands?
After the explosion and crash, I ran out to my field. There I saw the strange machine that I had seen, only it was glowing hot. I was terrified, but then the top of the machine started to open.
So, by the way, canonically, the entrance to a Bloodfang is on the top. Get that in the Wikipedia, please.
Tell those guys. Wait, that's us.
Machine?
It resembled a bird, but it was not a bird. I know this. I just want to feed the birds.
Open?
I could not move from the spot as I saw the strange ship open.
You're going full Paul McCartney.
From out of the top came the vicious tiger logging. I don't even... Look what you made me do! From now... Tiger Lion, we're going to have to make this up. Tiger Loggins. There was a savage hunger in its eyes. It was the Hunger Games.
Tiger Loggins is Kenny Loggins. Cooler brother. Tiger Loggin?
It came at me like a predator. Fast comes after a prey. It was so fast that I could not move. I thought I was going to be killed for certain. It reached me in a second. It looked into mine eyes. And then it died.
Hunger?
In other words, it looked like it might eat me, you moron.
Died?
What it and I had failed to notice was that I was holding mine hoe. Whoa, don't call your wife that. It had once been accidentally enchanted by a passing mage, and it works wondrously in the fields. I use it for everything. The I'll just call it Tiger Logger, had run itself through upon it. As it died, the thing spoke.
Spoke?
It said 2 words. Kill Rathi. I I do not know who this wrathy person is or why the tiger logger wanted to kill him. But I do know I sure got worried. Now whenever I see moving lights in the night sky, my voice goes.
Kill Rathy?
I am quite certain that was it. Or something like that. Anyway, the tiger logger itself proved to be quite delicious. I ate it? Yeah, let's talk about my hoe. I am sure thou dost not about the plague of looniness that has come to afflict all of the mages in the world. It was several years ago that I brought my broken hoe to a mage called Mum. Really? Fixing things was all he was good for anymore. There also was some fighter who wanted Mum to enchant his sword, turning it to the Sword of Death. It appears poor Mum got confused, and that fighter came back and killed him because the man wound up with a sword that was only good for cutting weeds. I could never figure out what exactly happened. He became a landscaper. It appears that old Mum made mine hoe into the hoe of destruction. Unfortunately, the hoe is lost. I'm not gonna add in my own commentary to that. I'm leaving it be. Well, it is not really lost. It's locked up in my shed. It is the key to the shed that I lost, and I'm afraid to break my own door down. I think I might have accidentally used it as a fish hook when I was fishing on the banks of the Loch Lake, so now I cannot get into my shed. One would think that I am a loony.
Bye.
I thank thee for thy decency, and hey, you didn't even let me finish before you ran away, you...
Well, I mean, it sounds like before we can go back to our world, we should at least try to
find
get
his key.
that hoe, yeah.
So
let's
listen, this is a family show. It's his fishing hook. Which, first off, really? A key for a fishing hook? This better be the fanciest key I've ever seen.
There's a moon gate? That's how you jump from place to place in Britannia.
No, I don't know what you mean. We don't know anything about jumping anywhere except with our jump drop.
There's a weird portal that I don't know how it works.
It looks like a blinking blue square.
In answer to the question from the chat, this came out in 1992, so in the wake of Wing Commander 2. So the assets they use for this in-joke are all from Wing Commander 2. It's the Kilrathi Throne Room MIDI that plays when you click on it. It's literally the rendered top view from Wing Commander 2 is the Blood Fang.
No, the Kilrathi, sir.
So I thought it would be fun.
There are no warp conduits, sir, here.
By the way, what exactly happened there? Why was its last words the name of what it is? If someone kills me, I'm not going to be like, human.
No, you're going to say, bad. Or should you just say, oh, we got some choppers on me bits.
No, he's being attacked by an alligator, which... Let me
just punch him in the face.
Just punch that alligator.
Wow.
Ooh. Yeah. There's no tasty alligator meat in there, so we're double disappointed here.
Kill gators.
Oh, and now it's raining.
Oh, it's like rain on your Kilrathi day. This is the professionalism we put into this.
Mm-hmm.
Too bad you didn't have that weed whacker hoe. You could chop some of that stuff down. Oh, we got snake. I hate snakes.
Snakes.
I hate snakes. That one snake is get out of here.
And I've been poisoned. Things are not looking good for me.
Oof. And you got those weird bushes.
Yeah, we may not make it to that hoe.
Sure.
Oh, wait, what's this? Some fish? Oh. I wonder if I have anything that can... I wonder if I have any healing stuff.
Vial. Drink it.
Maybe. Nope.
Did you shrink?
Why am I still in combat mode?
I don't know.
There we go. Peace mode. I'm going to eat one of the dead fish.
Ah, very tasty.
So there we have Venom. That's
well,
not what we need right now.
Nope, that's not good.
Eating fish.
I shall soon be plump. Why are we red? Would you eat or something?
Yeah, I've been poisoned. I'm slowly dying.
Oh.
You know, life.
Yep.
Oh, I've had enough raw fish now.
Well, yeah, you gotta be careful.
You see, some of these fish, when you get the green thing, it means you can eat it. When you don't, it means you're looking in it for perhaps a key. Oh, well, there's a key right there.
Oh, that is not what I would call an effective hook, sir.
Well, it caught a fish, just not in the right way.
I believe that's called killing a fish. What just hurt you?
I am poisoned from the...
the snake.
I'm poisoned and it's impacted. Because it's a classic RPG. You're taking poison damage as turns move.
I gotcha.
So the real question is, can I get in here and get a hoe before I die from...
I've got a hoe. See, that looks like a fishhook key down there, but that's clearly not the same thing.
Come on, guys. That's my key, right? Oh, that's the wrong one. There we go.
I'm just trying to get in to see my hoe.
Tough Big Benjamin. Ah, there we go.
Wait, which is that? The red?
It's the hoe of destruction.
Oh, this is where we make. We might make. Is that the evolution of Galen's spell of destruction? Is he the mage? Is Galen the techno mage, the mage who put the spell of destruction on the hoe of destruction?
No, it was Mumba.
Mum, Galen, they're all techno mages, those fanticles.
So that's Ultima 7 for you, and it's amazing Wing Commander reference. Mm-hmm. We just thought that would be fun.
Wait, do we need to go home first?
Go home. Oh yeah. Well, let's go back to our.
Okay.
Let's go back
to the courtyard.
All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that part.
Do you think it's gonna work the second time?
Well, let's see what happens.
It says jump drive.
All right, press it.
March 15, Earth Year 2454. Earth's defenses are threatened.
No, don't play the Wing Commander movie trailer again.
Wait a minute, did that just show our ship being blown up?
Did
you bring the hoe of destruction back with you?
By the way, we had to have a serious debate of which privateer ship
we
wanted
did.
to export for the jump
We
drive.
did. We needed 2 seats, but then we also needed a cargo because the cargo bay behind us. Can't leave it behind. I can't believe you just blew up the ship. That was actually perfect. That
went well, yeah.
Sometimes we have mistakes that we absolutely end up loving.
No, I'm happy that all of our dumb stunts have gone so far. So
yeah, that was great.
So you want to introduce our next segment, which is called...
Oh! Do we have any special bits?
No, I have special bits.
Oh, I gotcha. I believe this is called, even though I don't have the proper hat yet, Mikhail's Navy. Where this week on Mikhail's Navy, besides me being Mikhail, obviously, is that we are going to look at different Wing Commander ships and their real-world equivalents. And... this should be interesting.
As you've seen us do a couple times, Jason here is a World War II historian, so he can give us some actual... this is a free college education you're getting right now.
I'll be building all of you.
As long as what you're interested in is a very specific history of one warplane.
Yes.
So we're going to go through first the F6F Hellcat of World War II fame, and then I'm going to talk about the Hellcat 5 from Wing Commanders 3 and 4 and a couple other places, and... we've got all kinds of multimedia and exciting fun, and
let's see how this goes.
So what?
But yes, Michael, the cameras are reversed, but I told him not to fix it on this because our Hellcat, we're above the appropriate Hellcat facing the right direction.
And then I was like, well, I could just move those. And he was like, nah, don't bother.
No, because then they'll be flying away from each other.
I could just mirror those.
No, none of that's okay. I'm not okay with any of that.
All right, I'm going to open up your slideshow right now.
All right, yeah, then we'll have to figure out a time where to play the movies, too. We'll do that in a bit. So
we've got, man, if you like two people excitedly talking about something really boring, you're gonna love this one.
Yes, this is totally good. So, the F6F Hellcat, right? This is a project that actually starts out 6 months before the attack on Pearl Harbor. A very common misconception about the Hellcat is that it was designed directly based on evidence we had recovered from what's called the Akutan Zero. So in July of 1942, this Japanese Zero, part of a carrier group that had been raiding the Aleutians, is shot down, it gets damaged over Dutch Harbor. It actually crashes. It's later located by the Americans. We pick it up, bring it home, and then we put it through its absolute paces, not far from here at Patuxent River Naval Air Station.
Here being Rockville.
Oh, yeah, Maryland. Yeah, sorry, being Maryland, yeah. And what happens is that they test out its speed, its maneuverability, and they provide this information to both the Navy and then the aircraft designers, including Roy Grumman, who's the head of Grumman Aircraft. And Grumman, he basically looks everything over and he says, you know what? We can just about beat this thing in every way without trading off things, right? So, Japanese, like the Zero, in order to get all of its advantages, it trades safety. Self-sealing fuel tanks, pilot armor, things that are advantageous to the pilot are removed for the sake of maneuverability and range. I often used to explain this to classes. A Zero is just like a samurai sword. Absolutely amazing for offensive operations, but if somebody comes at you with a long sword, you're dead. And the F6F Hellcat is that long sword. Because what happens is that Grumman begins developing this project, and right, it looks a little bit similar to its younger brother, the F4F Wildcat, but that's about where the similarities end. Because what happens is that the Hellcat gets a newer engine, the Pratt & Whitney R2800 Double Wasp, which we'll talk about a few more times because it actually gets used in the P-47 Thunderbolt, so we'll talk about it when it's the Thunderbolt's time. The Tiger Cat and the Bearcat all use it. But this is what gives the Hellcat its power. Its ability to climb very well, dive very fast. It is quite impressive. So the Hellcat, she tops about 390 miles an hour. Yes, the Corsair as well. I'm an anti-Corsair person because I'm a Hellcat person. We'll talk about that one day. It's a long, interesting story. But she gets about just under 400 miles an hour. About 390 is a good number. She climbs about 3,500 feet a minute. Yeah, sorry, Johnny. I know. A lot of people get upset at me about it. It has a combat range of about 325 miles, which seems like not a whole lot at the time. But when you consider that the Wildcat's range was 175 miles, we have a massive increase in ability to reach out and do damage. It mounts 6 50 caliber machine guns, the M2 Browning, the American machine gun.
By the way, just let me know when you want to go to the next slide.
Oh, yeah. I got them all marked for you. Don't you worry.
Your presentation is fancier than mine.
I will definitely do the snooty academic slide when it is time. Yes. All right. Where the hell was I? Oh. Now, at first, right, this aircraft, she can be adapted to carry 6 rockets, 3 under each wing. It can carry a 1,000-pound bomb underneath its center bomb rack or a drop tank, fuel tank. Yeah, 6 5-inch rockets is what it can carry. Later models, they can actually mount more on the F6F-5. So they produce just over 4,400 of these aircrafts. They begin joining the fleet in November 42, and then they actually will start to be sent out to the Pacific and worked into the air groups of the newer carriers we're building. So after 1942, we'll start to see the Essex and Independence class start joining the fleet. The Essex had been started before the war, but they're now just starting to show up in late 42 and then joining the fleet in early 43 and then working their way up. They're essentially doing what the Tarawa does at the start of End Run when they're trying to train their pilots to be somewhat capable.
Like we were training our pilots today, theoretically?
Yes.
Yeah. We planned this.
We totally planned all of this, right? So they spend the next few months working up on this, and they'll first see combat on the 31st of August, 1943. And when they go after little Marcus, I didn't even put a slide of Marcus because it's a triangle about this big with a runway, and that's literally it. It's a speck in the middle of the ocean. So
can I ask a Hellcat development question?
Yes, certainly.
Wildcat.
Yes.
Maybe you're going to go over this, I don't know, but what's the connection between the Hellcat and the Wildcat? Because to an untrained eye, they look so similar. The same company.
Yep. So the Wildcat has a different engine, which provides less power. That's the kind of biggest thing. The R2800 Double Wasp is what, it's the Hellcat is almost, the frame is adjusted to fit the engine. So you can get this additional power that's generated from it. It's kind of like later on, the Allisons with the P38, the Merlin and the P51. But as a result, the weaker engine in the Wildcat doesn't allow it to keep up with the Zero unless they start using things like the Thatch Weave and other techniques. The FM2 is it's a Wildcat. It's just built by General Motors. Their later models, they'll be also used on the escort carriers because the Hellcat is actually too big, which is kind of funny. So Marcus is 2,700 miles west of Pearl, but it is 950 miles east of Tokyo. So this is the last speck of land before you hit Japan in the northern Pacific. So all Marcus is an island, it's a runway and a weather station. That's the only thing there. The reason we're going there, it's a milk run, right? They want to blow this stuff up. And
just like in the short story Milk Run.
Exactly like in the short story Milk Run. And slide. So, the first Hellcat of the world will be launched from the USS Yorktown. And this is a very big deal because the USS Essex and Yorktown, that's CV9 and 10, they're built at the same time in Norfolk. The Essex beats it into the Yorktown into the water, and these two have this constant kind of competition over who will be first in all these things. And the Yorktown managed to get its first Hellcat up just minutes before the Essex, giving that big claim to fame. And the two captains of the ships use this to kind of push their men to do even more all the time. So here what I have this is actually from far later in the war. This is the infamous famous Murderer's Row. So you see those Essex-class carriers right in the center all lined up. To the left of the frame, you can see another carrier in a similar paint scheme. That's an Independence-class light carrier. And the one that's darker right above it, that's the USS Enterprise. She had a different paint scheme because she's a Yorktown class, and she was actually a night carrier at this time, so she was painted in darker colors to prevent being seen. So Task Force 15, which goes to raid Marcus, will be the Essex, the Yorktown, the Independence. So it's one of our two of our big new carriers, one of our new light carriers, one of our new battleships, USS Indiana, some light cruisers. And they're going to go out and they're going to go raid Marcus, where in that day, 2 Hellcats are lost to anti-aircraft fire. But overall, it's a great mission. Everything goes well. Slide. Now, the next day, on the 1st of September, what you're looking at here is a Kawasaki H-8K Emily flying boat. This will be the first air-to-air kill of the Hellcat, this big scout airplane.
God,
now,
you could just fill that thing with grain, couldn't you?
You could fill a lot of grain in that, yes. Now, this shoot-down occurs 720 miles east of Baker Island, Baker Island, which is 720 miles east of Tarawa. Tarawa, right? Now, this is shot down by a man named Richard Loesch, who makes the first air-to-air kill in a Hellcat. He was actually the first pilot to score kills in both. So he was a Wildcat pilot at first. He shot down enemy in that plane, and then when he gets to the Hellcat, he shoots down the first Hellcat kill. So he's the first pilot to shoot down an enemy in both planes.
Ladies, get yourself a man who could shoot down both planes.
That's right. And he had previously shot his last enemy aircraft down during the Battle of the Eastern Solomons. And slide. Oh my god, I caught him off guard. And here is Richard Loesch after this. Is a post-war picture of him when he was a test pilot. So he makes this kill.
Test pilots, they'll never go to space.
Never, right? Now, this is the first of 5,156 enemy kills made by Navy and Marine Corps pilots in the Pacific. These are 75% of all the air-to-air victories the United States achieves during the Second World War, right? The Hellcat is the one that it really does the most damage. when you translate this out, there was just over 5,000 kills, 270 Hellcats. That's all that were lost in its almost 3 years of service. That means its kill-to-loss ratio is 19-1, which has never been surpassed to this day. And I don't imagine it will unless something crazy happens. But by the fall of 43, the Hellcat is on all the carriers. Wildcats are now only found on the escort carriers. All of the light and fleet carriers will only mount Hellcats for the rest of the war. And then later on, the Corsair will start to come in. The problem with the Corsair, though, is it has some structural issues. It's often called derivatively the Ensign Eliminator, due to how the engine is mounted on it and inability to see the flight deck, but that's for another day. Excuse me. So later on, these fleets, these carriers, these Hellcats are now going to start moving across the Pacific and racking up crazy kills. And our first ace slide, this is Hamilton McWhorter.
He looks just like Colonel Blair in the Wing Commander movie with the...
Oh, isn't that interesting? Now, he has the distinction on the 18th of November, 1943, of becoming the first Hellcat ace. To be an ace in combat means shooting down 5 enemy planes in the air and having them confirmed, as in, it's clear that the plane does not make it home. Sometimes they'll call them probables if, it's smoking and they see it going down, but there's nobody who witnesses the impact of it into the ground or the water. Now... During this time in November of 43, this is when we're invading the Gilbert. So this is Tarawa. It's called Operation Galvanic. And what happens is that on the 23rd of November, we have the first what's called Ace in a Day. Chuck Yeager is a very famous one of these. This means that you shoot down 5 enemy planes in a single day of operations or even a mission. So instantly you become an ace. And Ensign Ralph Hanks, he's the first person to do that. 40 Hellcat pilots, 40 will become aces in a day before the war is over. Slide. Here's a wonderful Hellcat. Now during this, we start to see Hellcats, right, while they're advantageous against Zeros in a lot of ways, the Zero is still more maneuverable. So they start to develop techniques, which we still use to this very day. Things like the Thatch Weave, which is a system where 2 pilots will essentially go back and forth. The whole idea is that if a Zero gets behind one of them, the next turn, the other wingman is going to be able to shoot at him. So there's no way for this Zero to avoid being destroyed or shot down or damaged if it stays in this slot. And also during this time in Galvanic is when we lose. If you've ever flown through Chicago, you've either gone through O'Hare or Midway. And Butch O'Hare is a very famous fighter pilot. He receives the Medal of Honor for an earlier action in a Wildcat in 1942 when he shoots down a number. He actually becomes an ace in a day over the USS Lexington. And what happens is he will unfortunately be lost. He's one of the first what we call bat pilots or night fighters. And he, along with 2 other aircraft, will go out on a mission trying to destroy Japanese snoopers. And for a long time, because of the darkness, people thought that perhaps he had been shot down by friendly fire due to some confusing actions. But about 20 years ago, 2 historians were able to show that no, he was shot down by a Japanese plane and not the friendly planes with him. Right. But over the course of that year in 43, we'll start to see more and more of these Hellcats joining the fleet. And then we'll see their next model, which is actually on screen. This is an F6F-5, which makes some kind of quality of life improvements, if you will. Slide, please, sir. What are these improvements? And look at those. Oh, that is beautiful, right? And also, notice how big this plane is, right? You can see the size of the pilots inside. The F6F-5 becomes operational in April of 44.
That's nothing. I saw this Bloodfang earlier. It was smaller than my guy.
That's right. So the Dash 5 does things like pushes the top speed over 400 miles an hour, adds 1,000-pound wing bomb mounts. So now it can carry 2,000-pounders on the wings. It can also now has a mount for a 2,000-pound bomb center line. Its range is now increased to 450 miles. So if you put a fuel tank on there, you're pushing almost 600 miles with it. So it becomes the scout plane of the Pacific Fleet. It still mounts to 650s, although later in the war, when the kamikazes become an issue, what they do is they pull 2 of the 50s out. They pull 2 of the 50s out and they mount 2 20mm cannons. So it's 2 20s and then 4 50s, which is a lot of angry lead coming at enemy pilots. And they build 6,681 of these Hellcat -5s. And what will eventually happen is that in June of 44, of course, right, as more and more Hellcats are online, we're pushing further and further west across the Pacific, and we'll eventually end up just outside the Marianas, where for the previous year, the United States has been really trying to force the Japanese fleet to come out and fight. Right, they're trying to do something to make them come out so that the U.S. fleet can let them know how much they've improved since 1942. And over again, right, we keep attacking different locations to the point where the Japanese are not coming out. That Nimitz is quoted as saying, "I don't know anything more we can do to provoke these people into a fleet action." Right, they're trying to find a reason to get these ships to come out. Slide. And they do. In mid-June of 1944, this is the Battle of the Philippine Sea. This is the Hellcats. This is its finest hour. This picture here is actually crew members looking up from Task Force 58, and those contrails are, of course, the results of the air combat that's been going on all that day on the 19th of June. So what happens when we go to invade the Marianas, we have Task Force 58, which is the most powerful naval force in the world at the time. In June of 44, it has 15 fast carriers, 7 heavy Essex class, and 8 light carriers. So 8 of the Independents are there. The Princeton is not there, I believe, because it's actually being built up as a night carrier to help destroy Japanese snoopers. So what will happen is that, where did I just do that? Oh, is that right? This force of these 15 battleship, these aircraft carriers, 7 fast battleships, dozens of cruisers, destroyers. There's over 950 planes on this fleet. 452 of them are Hellcats. On the other side of the ocean, in the Philippine Sea, is the Japanese Mobile Force, which has 9 heavy carriers, and it carries a total of 450 planes. So let me say that again. There are 452 Hellcats with the Americans, and Admiral Ozawa with the Japanese has 450 planes total. It's not a good day for them. Because what will happen is during the Battle of the Philippine Sea, all morning and into the afternoon of June 19th, the Japanese will launch 4 strikes at the U.S. fleet, and each one will be met and destroyed by American combat air patrol and anti-aircraft fire. And the difference is huge because of the skill of the pilots. Americans have a minimum of 2 years training, 500 hours in the cockpit. Japanese pilots, they maybe have 100 hours. They've maybe landed and taken off from their carriers 10, 15 times. They have very little experience by comparison. American pilots at this time, we have figured out American mass production in terms of pilots. And so what will happen is that the Japanese launched 373 planes. The United States shoots down 322 of them. Complete and total annihilation. Right? It was an aerial slaughter, the kinds of which has never been seen before or since.
So the turkey shoot is here.
Certainly could be. Slide. And here, this is a very famous picture of Alex Verushu. I only know how to say his name because I've watched many interviews where you say it's just like cashew. Because if you see how his name is spelled, you're thinking, what?
I know his name from the Battlehawks 1942 copy protection.
Oh, is that one of the... Well, that's a hard word to spell. I can see why, because his name is spelled weird. It's Vraciu. So he's holding up 6 fingers because that's the bag he has just taken, right? He shot down 6 enemy fighters, or 6 enemy bombers in a single sortie. So he is obviously he was already an ace before this, so this is just adding to his kill score. Now, there are numerous pilots that they will have large bags like that. And then later on, slide, right after this, Admiral Mark Mitcher will walk down to the flight deck. So he's in charge of all of Task Force 58. And he comes down and he wants a picture for his private collection of him and Alex. So that's Alex Verushu shaking the hand of the commander of Task Force 58. And I actually hadn't seen this picture until recently. It was one that was not really out there a lot because it had been kept in Mitcher's private collection.
But now it's on a Wing Commander's live stream.
It's on Mikhail's Navy, damn it. Now slide, sir. And this gentleman, this is David McCampbell, the highest scoring Navy ace, the all-time highest scoring Navy ace, top F6F Hellcat ace, 34 aerial victories is what he finishes the war with. The reason for that is timing is everything. And when he was deployed with Air Group 15, they happened to be deployed right before the Battle of Philippine Sea, and they returned home just after the Battle of Leyte Gulf. So if there was a prime time to be a Hellcat pilot, that is certainly it. He also set a single world record in aerial combat on the 24th of October, so during the Battle of Leyte Gulf, when he downs 9 enemy planes in a single mission. He was actually the head of he's the commander air group, and there are multiple people that used to yell at him saying he had zero fever, that he's supposed to be organizing strikes, organizing defense, and instead, somehow zeros always end up near him and going down. There's a lot of books that go off about Dave McCampbell. He's a good commanding officer. He maybe did have a little bit of zero fever, but you can't.
We've all had that playing Wing Commander. We've sent our wingman home and wanted to score all the kills ourselves.
You're afterburner after somebody who's running, and there's no point in going after. Yeah. Certainly, right? Certainly.
There.
Now, as we get to the end of the war, right, we're skipping along, but this is not a college class, thankfully. At the end of the war, right, August 15th, so both atomic bombs have been dropped, Hiroshima and Nagasaki have been destroyed, but the war continues, right? People often think that we just suddenly stopped after those. But no, airstrikes are going on those days, firebombing raids were still going on, carrier air groups were still raiding the Japanese coast, the battleships were shelling shore installations. So on the 15th, though, is when the Japanese surrender. And what happens is that a raid goes up to go after Tokyo, and at 6:35 a.m., suddenly the radios come to life and broadcast, all strike able planes. This is nitrate base. All strike able planes, return to base immediately. Do not attack target. The war is over. Now, as the groups begin to turn back, this is when the last dogfight of the Second World War occurs. Slide. Lieutenant Junior Grade Proctor of Fighting 9 will shoot down 2 fighters before he will destroy the last enemy plane of the Second World War, which is not this exact, but this is a Nakajima Ki-84, codename Frank. I just love that it's Frank. This is the last plane to be destroyed in the war, right? And of course, it was completed by not a Corsair, but a Hellcat.
This guy hates Corsairs.
I have a weird anti-Corsair thing. Now, by the time the war is over, 12,275 Hellcats have been built. More than 11,000 alone in the 36 months between September 42 and September 45. Now, I also don't mention, we actually send some to Europe. There are Hellcats that shoot down German Me-109s and FW-190s. We'll send some to the British, but we don't worry about that now. Hellcat pilots in both theaters are credited with a total of 5,216 enemy planes destroyed for 270 Hellcats lost. So that's that 19-1. Now, there's an even more impressive stat that a historian called Barrett Tillman put together, where he said, I just totally scrolled past it being too smart for myself. The Hellcat proved to be a superb bomber escort, something more often attributed to the Army Air Force's P-51 Mustang. But official Navy records show that from 1943 to 1945, only 42 U.S. carrier-based dive bomber or torpedo planes were lost to Japanese aircraft. So take that, Mustang. Now, the last of the Grumman will leave the last Hellcat will leave what's called the Grumman Ironworks, which they're called Ironworks because, right, a Corsair, it's the sexy, like Corvette, wind in the hair type plane. But Hellcats bring you home. Right? You can destroy that. They are just built like tanks, right? They're iron. And the last plane will be built in November of 45, but that will not be the end of the Hellcat. Slide, sir. Whoa! What happens is
That's
after...
my kind of Hellcat.
Yeah, it's bright orange. Now, that's actually an F6F5K. What that is, it's a drone. We have all these Hellcats after the war. Well, might as well do something with them. Let's turn them into drones. And
like Christmas 3 years ago.
yeah, and we will... Jesus. So what happens is during Korea, we start to use these first as practice. Later, though, we have this, we like smart munitions. So what happens is that we also turn these into some of the first smart bombs. So you ever know anything about Joe Kennedy, President Kennedy's older brother? He's killed during the Second World War while testing a B-17 bomb. And I mean that like purposely. It's a B-17 packed full of explosives that they were then going to fly into something. It's basically the kamikaze save, the guy gets out. And during Korea, we did this with Hellcats. We would take them, arm them with 2,000-pound bombs, and an A4D Sky Raider would act as the mothership, and these things would be flown into North Korean bridge spans. The whole idea is to drop them, which is an interesting way to do so. And and if you're from California, you can look up online called the Battle of Palisade, where one of these, right after takeoff, we're experiencing technical difficulties, and it takes off on its own. And that's something I want to save how that happens, because I showed below the pictures of the aircraft sent up to shoot it down the other day, and my first thing was swarmers, looking at that missile mount. But we'll save that for another time. Slide. Now today there is one remaining F6F-3 that can fly, and 5 F6F-5s that can fly. This is the one from the Flying Heritage and Combat Armor Museum in Everett, Washington. Their F6F-5, they believe, is one of the last that was actually built in the Grumman Iron Works. But it was also a drone. If you get close to it, you can look at the tail assembly, even over their beautiful new paint job. And you can see the divots and dents where the wax bullets they had used in target practice for shooting down the drones had impacted it. And you can even see in some places where they didn't do all the paint, where the original bright hunter orange is still visible inside certain areas.
So not a National Air Space Museum level restoration on that guy.
Oh, it's probably even beyond. Yeah, it's more like a combat restoration. Now, I should say first that if you notice the paint scheme on it, right? See the tail? Mm-hmm. It's painted. They would do that to identify what carriers they were on. So earlier I had a picture that showed the same paint scheme, and that was from the USS Randolph. And they have painted their Hellcat in a similar manner. Slide. Where here we can see the Hellcat up close with its wings folded up. Right? Get a kind of idea of its size, but not a whole lot. And slide. Now, I have this slide for one particular reason. Will everyone notice the number of human beings being used to lower and lock the wing into place?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Okay, I will tell you that you do not need 8 people to do that. Slide. Because I helped drop that wing. I don't know who's in that cockpit. We'll have to enhance it to see. But I can tell you that 3 people can do it. It's heavy, not going to lie. It's definitely heavy to drop down and then lock into place. But it was quite cool. But who is in that cockpit right now? Why don't we hit the slide and get a closer view? Wow, it's somebody with a small head. I'll say that, huh? I don't know what's behind it either. Yeah, I put a lot of thought into this. Next one. Hey, that's me. That's actually from just about over a year ago. I used to give talks up at the Flying Heritage Collection for them during some of their events. And because they don't pay you. They then paid me by bribing me by getting to have free reign of the museum on Martin Luther King Day. So I was able, because the museum is closed.
Well,
so
that's ideal. You work for the museum, and you're like, well, you can't pay you, but you can touch all the artifacts you want. We'll look the other way.
Yeah, I have a bunch of other pictures we can use for some of the other stuff and planes. I even, just so you know, Captain, I did sit in the Corsair, and you'll appreciate this because of my dislike of it. You know, I was looking around in it, and I almost knocked myself unconscious by hitting the gun sight, which is a very common thing, because right when I did it, both guys outside say, "Ha! I know what you just did," and I said, "Oh, I hate you both." Yes, I did make flying and shooting sound effects. Actually, at one point, I closed the cockpit and did that when they couldn't. The two guys who were taking me around couldn't hear me, and then I rolled it back, and they said, "I don't hear any gun sounds or shooting sounds out there." And I was like, "I did it when it was closed. I didn't want you guys to hear me doing so." But yeah, but the reason I really wanted to show, besides like how cool is it I sat in Hellcat, but look at the size of me inside that aircraft. Right? I'm 5'9", not a huge guy, but I look puny like a little toy in there, right? And then slide, and then here's the whole air. You can see, right? The other wing is still up. Right? We took one wing down, so I could climb up into it and sit in there and get those pictures and stuff like that. And behind it is actually an IL-2 Stormovic, but that's nothing related to this. And at the very end here, last slide, is I just wanted to put in, these are all the different patterns. This is something you and I had looked up years ago, because of the lightning bolt for the Shangri-La there is the same as the Concordias.
Concordia's, the Rapier Squadron has that same lightning bolt.
Yeah, and that's all I have for the Hellcat.
You want to watch your videos?
Oh my god, I completely, even after I said at the beginning, god damn it. Yes, so I pulled up two kind of short clips about the Hellcat. Do we have sound or no sound?
They have sound.
Yeah, let it ride. We'll listen
right.
to its wings. So if you've ever, you grew up with the Discovery Channel, you know exactly what this is.
A feature that the Hellcat shared with its smaller stablemate, the F4F, was its folding wings, as the innovation had proved itself a real success, and there was no point in changing it. A sturdy strut undercarriage, totally new on a Grumman plane, had been adopted to deal with the heavy load of the new fighter. The great bulk of the stubby design was to be propelled by the 2,000 horsepower Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine. Both the engine and the undercarriage were only slightly modified as the plane evolved. You can get some idea of the size of the aircraft as crew climb aboard it. Its bulk would demand too much for the small escort carriers, so these would remain the domain of the Wildcat with its short takeoff requirements. The Japanese plane's aerial gymnastic ability could be neutralized, and the issue was decided by Hellcats flying in pairs using their higher speed and better firepower to overpower the Mitsubishi fighters. A quick, high-speed pass allowed the U.S. pilots to target the lightly built Zero, and the Hellcat could then use its power to break away and return for a second pass rather than trying to mix it up with its nimble foe. The Zero's sacrifice of weight in armor and in rigidity made it a fragile target, and the American plane's heavy guns did not need to make too many strikes on one before it came apart. The Japanese lost their planes to the U.S. tactics, and the Japanese pilots, with their combat experience stretching back to the early 30s, were lost with them. Increasingly experienced, with no shortage of planes or fuel, the Americans faced resistance that was decreasingly effective. The outcome was inevitable. By 1945, U.S. carriers, now flying Corsairs as well as Hellcats, surrounded the Japanese islands. Had it not been for the atomic blasts, doubtless the Navy's air power and LeMay's long-range bombers would have prepared the way for invasion.
Well, that was pretty exciting. Thank you for the most thorough lecture I've seen about the Hellcat.
You're welcome, and I even tried to abridge a lot of stuff because it's one of those things. It's hard talking to a little camera. And
my philosophy for these things is do it so it's interesting to me, and if there's anybody else out there. Now, before we move on to the other Hellcat, I thought it might be fun if we were to actually pop in the cockpit of an F6F Hellcat, which we can do thanks to our friends at Origin in 1993.
Yes.
So let's just start up a little game called Pacific Strike.
Yep.
Now, of all the real space engine games, that includes Strike Commander, Wings of Glory, Wing Commander 3, Wing Commander 4, Armada, this is the one that is the most... most disastrous, I suppose you'd say. This was Origin's first attempt to follow up Strike Commander with a game that would better use the engine, so you would actually see the aircraft. So you would have you Strike Commander. The problem is that you fight missile battles just like real life, and you don't see the amazing 3D engine they built. So they funded Pacific Strike, which is going to be World War II, and Wings of Glory, which was World War I. Unfortunately, this game shipped very buggy, and I think for the first time in Origin's history, the pushback was so bad that they initially said, "Oh, we're going to do a patch," and they put out this announcement to magazines saying, "Oh, we're going to patch this. Bear with us." And then about a month later, they put out a second announcement which said, "We've realized it's going to take 6 months to patch this. If you would like a refund, write to us." I don't know that I've ever seen that before. It's very odd for its era. I was looking through Usenet posts about this, and
that's weird.
Buggy aside, and it is buggy. You'll see a lot of texture popping, and just it was very rough to run at the time. Today it's okay on a Pentium, but back then it was very difficult. But it's actually a pretty incredible game.
It does look like when you were grabbing screenshots for this earlier. It is just it's amazing. It's beautiful.
I started playing it because I wanted to. I forgot there's instant action mode, so I was trying to play through it to get to the part in the world where But it's,
that's what. Yeah, because when you showed the picture, and I'm like, oh, you're clearly at February 42, and you're like, yeah. How do you? I was like, I know the history course, and I'm like, you got a long way to go.
So this game, it's one of the Wing Commander 1-iest games that there is. The campaign is totally dynamic, and it's based on what ships survive from mission to mission. So if you go to Midway and you sink 2 more Japanese carriers, the war changes and it actually gets easier. And it has it has the whole Japanese Navy, all the capital ships, and if you sink them early enough, the war you can win the war without dropping the bomb.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
You actually assassinate the emperor.
Oh, that's not a good way to end the war against Japan. We'll talk about that actually later.
That's true. That will be relevant later.
It's weird how much we unintentionally planned it. This is all flowing together.
So, it's World War II fighters. It starts off very similar to the movie Pearl Harbor, and it's Wing Commander 1 style talking heads. The one problem with that for this type of game is it's very, very realistic, which means that every character is a 22-year-old white man. So your expendable wingmen get super expendable because you just don't care about them. But it's thoroughly dynamic. It's more dynamic than Wing Commander, and it's just that there's just too high a barrier of entry at the time to really get people into the campaign. But it's really incredible. And of course, here is the F6F Hellcat in real space glory.
With they even modeled the radio aerial that you typically don't see. That's what that weird wire is. Oh, they have it on the SPD, and there's that
See
Corsair.
all these aircraft. Yeah,
What was that? What was that? Was that a Bearcat at the very
It was
end?
a Bearcat. The Bearcat
Okay,
is because you can also do worse in the war, and it
Oh,
goes
he's
further, so you
longer.
start getting Bearcats. And
Oh, so then what? There's a Shinden probably, like Ugly Claw, Judy, Jill, George,
Betty.
Oh,
Emily. Yeah, there you
that
go.
is right. Well, the Emily, so there's the Abaka or Oka. Technically, interesting. They call it. Yeah.
Enterprise.
Yeah.
Light
Hey,
carrier.
That was our Tarawa transport. Yep. That's the Yamato. Wow, they really love to do the radio aerials, huh?
I think they had that transparency tech, and they were really into it.
Yep.
And,
Because I mean, there it is again, right? And
the Wing Commander 3 and 4 didn't have this, but the air combat games did. You could just luxuriate in the 3D models.
Yep. Yep.
There's
Imperial
Imperial
Shield.
Palace.
Okay, let's say looks like that.
All right,
and there's
so-
our Wildcat. Yep.
So
We
let's
noticed with the meatball, we got rid of the meatball obviously very early in the war for obvious reasons.
So let's just take a quick flight in a Hellcat.
Oh, look at this.
Yeah, good.
And
Remember
you're
these
right
old
off-
mission builders back in the 90s.
Well, I was more interested in where you're located. You're right off the coast of Japan. So we're late war here.
So I'm gonna fly one. We'll get Squints in there.
Pancake.
Noodles. You gotta have noodles.
Jeez.
So here we go.
Away we are.
And this game is very, very hard. I think I have it set to all the lowest difficulties right now, but it's very hard to control. But it's one of those ones where once you've played it for a week or two, you're amazing at it.
Oh yeah. And as we were talking about this before, about old games and their games today, if the learning curve is any more than like 10 minutes, it just seems that it goes out the window. Where growing up, we would try games for hours and hours and hours and be completely awful at them still.
Yes.
And then you would still try. Right? It would drive you to want to do stuff.
Here is
Oh, look at that. What do you got the meatball on there for? Uh-oh, that's
that
nice.
was actually one of the bugs. The wings are all the same on all the aircraft.
Okay, because I was going to say, that's definitely the Wildcat's wings.
So I can
you can,
build my 6-foot house. Napalm.
Whoa.
I've set it for ground attack.
Okay, because I was going to see, we only have 400 rounds per gun, so be careful with that, right? We only have 400
and
rounds.
because this is the real space engine, the cockpit is entirely 3D. If I can find a target, my eyes can look at it.
I'm trying to find it for it. Oh, you got a flight with you now.
Yeah, that's Pancake and Noodles and Company.
Oh, Squints, target sighted. Oh, look at that looks like Marcus Island, right? Oh no, that looks not like Marcus. So there's more than one island.
Yeah, so the drawing plane is very not
interesting. Was that white dot?
Theoretically, if I have my eyes on the target.
Wasn't it that white dot before?
It was, but I wanted to show you how the cockpit is 3D.
What the funky chicken is going on?
Okay, so now I take my eyes off the cockpit.
Oh, you're going in the water. Ooh, I'm trying to see your altitude. Okay, there it is. Oh, they give you an artificial horizon. That's good.
And instead of afterburners, if I hit tab, it increases time. You can see the draw plane is very low.
Yep. What year was this?
This was 93.
Interesting. Because looking at this, it's...
Thanks, Noodles.
We'll have to... so there's a Mac game that actually... one of, if not the first, one of the first flight sims I ever played called Hellcats Over the Pacific. Which has slightly... it has significantly less detail. It looks a bit cleaner because it's less detailed, but... it had very basic 3D models, so you'd have without the the insignias on the wings and things like that. Basic geometric. A destroyer was like a hull with like 2 bumps on the top. Carrier, the carriers were all light carriers too.
Yeah, I'm just sinking barges.
Yeah, I like what is that white dot?
That's my so there's not a targeting reticle like in Wing Commander because you don't really have that. But that's my eye. It's for me to identify the target.
Gotcha.
The other thing here,
Oh, look at cockpit lists.
Yeah, that was. In fact, this is probably the first use of that, or maybe they had it in Strike. There's also a communication system which I can't activate in this mode, but it works just like Wing Commander, where you go to menu where you're like C, and then I meant to ask you about this. I wanted to. How did inter-aircraft communication work?
It could be a mixture of hand signals if they were close and maybe like flying over and pointing down, or they would use radios. They would have radio discipline where you try to avoid having everybody screaming at the same time. But you'd have either say the command if it's later in the war and there's a CAG directing the op, they would then be detailing people around. If you're on combat air patrol, they'd have the CIC actually radioing out to you, intercept coordinates. So you would then, Angels 10 heading 200, speed 150.
So doubling down on that question, Wing Commander style taunts, is that possible in real life? Can I threaten a zero pilot?
No.
Because this game lets you do it, and it has a speech pack you buy separately.
So, no. You're not...
Japanese aircraft on the field there.
You always go for the easy ones, it says.
Thanks,
it knows
Noodles.
you. Yeah, jerk.
That's the great-grandfather of Needles from back to the...
Yeah, that's what I was trying... I was thinking that. So I was trying to think of what Flea's name was in that, where I'm like, I know this from somewhere. It's not her fly chicken. So the only way you could taunt is pulling up next to them, rolling down the window, and yelling, or flipping them the bird and stuff like that. Yeah,
the great thing about this game is it just takes the Wing Commander system. So you communicate, and it's like USS Nevada, your wingman, A6M0.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, because oftentimes Zeros didn't have radios because radios are weight. Well, you'd have it in, say, the squadron commander's aircraft, but not all the... That is a horrible landing. I don't know how this is going to work.
It's automated right now. I don't know why I'm so high.
Yeah, I don't know either, because now you're somehow going back down. I don't even understand that.
You do get an actual takeoff and landing in the campaign mode.
But so, I mean, it depends... Like,
by the way, let me show you what this looks like, because it's so interesting before we...
Yeah, because I was going to say, when it comes to... it depends. Like, radios are just heavy, especially the Japanese didn't have really great radios. That was hilarious how he just woke up.
So here's my my inside of the ship, and by the way, this never got a talkie release. So
it's also set in its time, I will say.
It's very racist. The dialogue. I don't think this would fly in a game today. And
no way.
It makes you uncomfortable, even though it is total, accurate. But it's. This series is in 1942, and we're escorting the Hornet to do its bombing run.
It depends. It depends on what engines they were mounting. They didn't always fix those. It depends on what you could get for them, because they sometimes, like the Japanese, sometimes made some interesting decisions. My favorite is at Pearl Harbor. As they're preparing to, sitting on the elevator. But at Pearl Harbor, right, when the Japanese arrive with the first strike, there's a signal for them to signify whether they have surprise or whether they have no surprise. Surprise is one. I want to say
the Japanese plane's aerial gymnastic ability could be neutralized, and the issue was decided by Hellcat.
All of our videos. There we go.
All right. So I forget if it was red or green at the moment. So Fushida, he goes to alert everybody, right? So they have surprise. He fires his flare. Not everybody sees it. So surprise lost was two of the same color flares. So he fires one, so some pilots see that, okay, Roger, we're going to the surprise attack because there's a certain way, there's an order they're going to go attack ships because they don't want to cause smoke and things to blind other pilots. Then he fires the second flare. So all the pilots who saw the first flare are thinking, oh, surprise lost. Now we go into our surprise lost attack patterns, where then the second group that had never seen the first flare think, oh, surprise, and they go into their attack pattern, and it creates a little bit of doubling up and other interesting things, but we'll go into all that when we get to action stations.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about the Hellcats' names. They're the Wing Commander version of the Hellcat.
Yeah, that was confusing for us. I was like, "What? Yes, he's right."
Namesake of
The namesake's namesake.
So before we do, here's our little transition. Which we posted that we were going to be talking about this yesterday to the forums, and Clavs, the amazing 3D artist, made this, which is an accurate. This is a scale. Scale comparison of the F6F Hellcat and the Hellcat 5. At least in terms of how the length is listed in the
that is insane.
The Wing Commander 3 manual.
Now remember how
remember how big he looked.
Yeah, and now look at the size of that. Yeah. That is insane. That is insane. Johnny, what were you guys thinking? Same with Mark. What were you guys thinking?
So I'm going to go through the different appearances of the Hellcat and Wing Commander and do
this is
my Ben thing.
That's right now. You had to sit back and relax. Now I can sit back and relax. Oh, you know what's even dumber? I forgot I had my special shirt on too today, which I can't see because you blocked that.
There you go.
Loose lips, sink ships, or might
sink ships. But it's possible they won't, so it's okay.
That's true.
So the Hellcat 5, one Hellcat 5, medium interceptor, primed, prepped, and loaded and ready to kick some ass.
Such a weird grouping of words she does. It sounds a little bit how she does it.
We'll hear her say it in just a moment.
We will.
But it's introduced in Wing Commander 3 as sort of the baseline Terran fighter. And I'm going to read the first description you get. You open the box, you see this page of ships, the little Warbirds poster. This is the baseline Terran fighter. The Hellcat 5 is a solid vehicle in any combat situation. Most are deployed in attacks against smaller fleet ships or serve as escorts. The ship's responsive speed controls and quick turn radius make the latest Hellcat the best all-around ship in the fleet. And I remember that line specifically, the latest Hellcat, just absolutely fascinated me at the time because we hadn't seen a Hellcat in Wing Commander, but the V should represent it's the fifth aircraft spacecraft to use that space frame.
Yeah.
So theoretically there have been 4 other Confederation ships called Hellcat that we've just never seen. And I love world building like that, where you imply the larger world by showing you one little part of it.
That's what has always grabbed me. And just trying to figure out how many morsels of detail can I squeeze out of what they tell us.
I will also read Colonel Winfield T. Hart's description of the Hellcat from the Wing Commander 3 Authorized Combat Guide, which is written quasi in universe, where it's a Wing Commander 3 hint book, but it also has this like memoirs of the Colonel, who's for some reason named Winfield T. Hart.
Is he also a insurance salesman?
So he says, when the Confederation military scientists were asked to create a good all-around fighter, they came up with the Hellcat. It's fairly fast, has pretty good armor, can turn almost as tight as the Arrow, and can hang in a fight for a long time. So there's your basic Hellcat background. Hellcat 5, produced by Douglas Aerospace. And according to the hidden information screen in Wing Commander 3, the architect was Garner Industries, and it was the retcon anyway now is that the current version of the Hellcat was introduced in September 2669. We're going to see that the Hellcat goes a little bit further back than that, and in fact, those screens are kind of suspect because they say the Excalibur is 2675, and but it's interesting stuff anyway. Anyway, here we have the 3DO selection screen for the Hellcat with the stats. 420 KPS. Make your joke.
Burn them Hellcats.
Yeah, 1200 KPS afterburners. 27 meters, that's the giant length we saw. But basically a good medium fighter. It doesn't do anything particularly well. It doesn't do anything particularly badly. It has a small missile complement, 6 missiles. And we've seen, I believe we've seen 5 different variants. So we're going to start with the Wing Commander 3-1.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when there are certain missions where you only have the choice between the Hellcat and the Arrow. What did you go with?
I always choose the Arrow is a much better fighter than the Hellcat all around.
Yes.
Okay. In fact, on paper it's not, because Victory Streak lists the stats of the Arrow as worse than the Hellcat. But the actual ships in the game have different armaments, and they're pretty much identical in terms of weapons, and the Arrow is just so much more maneuverable, and it looks so much cooler. So I always choose the Arrow. In fact, if I do a playthrough of Wing Commander 3, I think the only mission you have to fly a Hellcat it is Orsini 1.
Yeah.
And so that's the only one I do.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure that's the only one I do too. Why would you?
So here's some shots of the Wing Commander 3 Hellcat. That's on the flight deck of the Victory. The what is the squadron of the Victory? The 36th Fighter Wing. There is the PC version of the selection screen. IMREX the default. There is the 5 view. This is the cockpit. Wing Commander 3 only had the forward cockpit render, so you never get to see the sides. But we will see in a moment that they built a physical cockpit for Wing Commander 4, which does not match this at all. The Hellcat is atmosphere capable, and that's introduced as early as Wing Commander 3. You see during the rescue for Dr. Severin, it's before the Excalibur has... it's after the Excalibur is introduced, but Vagabond flies a Hellcat down to the planet to punch him, and you see Hellcats fly around.
Yeah.
I remember the Wing Commander community back in 1994-95 was very caught up in this, but only some ships are atmosphere capable. And, well, it seems like all ships are atmosphere capable, it's just they only rendered the takeoffs and landings for some, so...
Yeah.
But yeah, there it is from the takeoffs and landings in Wing Commander 3. The very first scene of Wing Commander 3, or the first scene with Blair.
Oh, I didn't almost notice them at first.
Yeah, and one of the odd things, if you look at the promo art, they're arrows. But in the final render of the game, it's a pair of Hellcats that fly around the... here is Rachel's terminal, where she first introduces you to the Hellcat. Her version has only 4 missiles, which is 2 heat seekers and 2 friend or foes. But the most interesting thing about this is there's no canonical designation for the Hellcat yet. If you look very, very closely at this screen, you can see there is one, but there's not the resolution to see it, even if you load up the 3DO version. People have claimed, I think it says F-86, like the Sabre, but there's never been a consensus on that. When we did Arena for Electronic Arts, we did it, we called it the F-42, but we never used that, so it never got printed, so that's not canon either. So that's Wing Commander 3. And let me jump to a little thing called, which you have not seen in the broadcast version of this show, but it's...
Oh my god, that's right.
Footballtron 10,000. And hopefully you can still hear us. This is Footballtron 10,000, which is our interactive viewing environment. Here is the Wing Commander 3 Hellcat, and I can rotate it. The technology of the future is incredible. Remember waiting 10 minutes to load a mission with this? Yep. And now I can load it in Footballtron 10,000.
Is hearing your drive spin up.
But again, it has a great top silhouette, but it's a boxy. It's nowhere near as sexy as the other Wing Commander 3 ships.
Yep.
And if I were to blow it up, here are what the parts would look like. There's a destroyed wing.
That's right, those parts that hung around for a little while.
There's the cockpit. See, he did not eject.
Nope.
I don't know why there's struts over the bubble.
Yeah.
And here is the Wing Commander 4 version, which is the next one we're looking at. You may notice that the textures do not look as good in the Wing Commander 4 version. That's because they had been trying to do a higher resolution textures, and they ended up having to skip that feature. So it looks a little bit muddy. And I really just want to show a Footballtron, but there's the wing in Wing Commander 4.
Well, this isn't even the full Footballtron. I mean, we
can draw on it.
This is just like
test Footballtron. Yeah. No.
Just a taste. Just a taste for the
taste
people.
of Footballtron.
That's right.
So, as I said, there are we fly the Hellcat in 2 different games. The first is Wing Commander 3, and the second one is Wing Commander 4.
You Footballtron yourself out of your own
outline. My outline away.
It's not.
There we go.
It's funny because when we're just talking off the cuff, I feel like it's much easier. But then we wrote all our notes out, and then it's like our brain stopped functioning somehow.
So, yes, in terms of timeline, it is believed that the Hellcat supplanted the Hornet or the Epi in many cases. In the Wing Commander card game, we have Hellcat cards. In fact, it's the people doing the card game based their description on the Warbirds poster, and they said, the Hellcat is the baseline Terran fighter, so we're going to use it as the example for all the maneuver cards. Let me before we get to Wing Commander 4, let me show you some of those cards. Aha! So you can see Hellcat's attacking a Vaktoth. Hellcat's attacking a couple of Drolfi.
With some beams.
Yeah. The break-off maneuver. The great thing about this is, in terms of world, I like playing the card game. Nobody else in the world does. But
I have to learn now.
But the really cool thing is that since they gave these to 10 different artists to come back and paint, we get all these different paint schemes for Hellcats. So we know the ones we know the ones from Wing Commander 3 that are on the Victory. We know the ones from the Lexington Wing Commander 4, and now we have all these variations, much like the chart you showed for the
the paint schemes. Yep.
You see, sometimes they've painted the Victory one. Sometimes it's something totally new. This one has weird roundels.
And it almost looks like, I don't know if they probably didn't know about the real thing, but through the war we used so many geometric shapes and we ran out of them. So that's why they started adding numbers and letters to some of those later. Like if you get the higher up Essex class, they don't have a cool lightning bolt. It's like a giant red A.
And here are the squadron
meanies.
The squadron cards. Each card has a different Hellcat squadron that exists somewhere in the Wing Commander universe. Mm-hmm. So got the Blue Meanie Squadron, Burma Tiger, Crazy Diamond,
somebody like
Dynamo Hum. Firebirds, Grey Hornet, Great White, Killer Bee Squadron. This is why I said that it seemed like the Hellcat had replaced the Hornet. We also hear at one point in the Wing Commander 1-2 official strategy guide that the Epi replaces the Hornet. So it may be Hornet, Epi, Hellcat, or maybe just the Killer Bees transition to Hellcats for some other reason.
Who knows? It could be like Army Air Corps, the Thunderbolt, the Lightning, multiple in the same.
And then, so then the elite squadrons, we get the Black Lions, formerly a Rapier Squadron. So, a Rapier 2 Squadron. Rapier and Rapier 2. I just wanted to share the CCG cards. The one that's most interesting these are the weapons cards. These add additional weapons to your ship if you tap them during your turn. And
stealth.
Here's a Blackfish stealth device that can be installed in a Hellcat. It can actually be installed in any ship in the game, but it uses the Hellcat imagery. And a torpedo mount. Much like the F6F Hellcat I was flying earlier, I can mount external bombs.
Well, I would tell you,
torpedo.
An F6F-5 could actually carry an 1,800-pound Mark 13 airdrop torpedo. We just never used it because we had Avengers.
Similar to how we never used the Hellcat to attack capital ships in Wing Commander 3.
Yeah.
I love that image, by the way.
It's good.
I love all of them. They're all great.
I love all you
I couldn't quit any of them. So you can see the different art styles.
Yeah, I tried to be, take down. I didn't want to do 9 million pictures.
All right, let's look at the Wing Commander 4 Hellcat.
Let's do it.
So, Hellcats are classed as short-range interceptors. The Wing Commander 3 novel first entirely forgets the Hellcat. If you read the first half of the Wing Commander 3 novel, the Hellcat is not mentioned anywhere. You're told that the Victory has 2 Arrow squadrons. And then one of them just becomes a Hellcat later in the book. So that's poor editing. But the Victory had... first one squadron of Hellcats, which was Red Squadron, and then around midway through the fighting in 2669, they added a second, which was White Squadron.
It's been a while since I've read that book. I remember not being like, you went with colors, like throwing it in.
Yeah, again, you kind of wish they would have the Black Lions or the Star Slayer or something.
Certainly.
So 4 variants of Hellcat. There's the one listed in Victory Streak, which has different armament than the version of Wing Commander 3. Victory Streak lists lasers and ion cannons. Wing Commander 3 has neutron guns and ion cannons. Both have 6 missiles. Then in Wing Commander 4, we have the what's called the post-war Hellcat. And the Wing Commander 4 novel introduces the idea that it's an uprated Hellcat that has added some odd things like a tractor beam for SNR missions. Blair has some internal monologue about how the Hellcats now have this tractor beam. And I mentioned there are all these odd points in Wing Commander productions where Hellcats and Arrows are swapped. We saw that Concordia crash scene earlier where the Hellcats in the promo were Arrows. The Wing Commander 4, the novel at the start that's supposed to be the first scene with Hellcats defending the ships, changes them to arrows for some reason. It just throughout there's all this weird swapping. The Wing 3 novel swaps the 2 for some reason.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing that we pull out about Hellcats from the Wing Commander 3 novel is that the TCS Coventry, one of the Victory's escorts, has a half squadron of them. So they must be capable of like very short takeoffs. They don't need the full carrier deck.
Well, we'll talk right. They can just kind of nudge their ways out, right? Like we will see Bear do later today.
Yeah, I mean takeoffs and landings are always a little odd in Wing Commander.
Yeah.
But let's look at the Wing Commander 4 Hellcat. Here it is on the deck of the Lexington. Here it is at the start of the game. You take your Hellcat, you have your battle with Maniac, and then you switch to a shuttle for the trip to Earth. But they did some great renders of Hellcats.
Yeah, I love those deck renders.
Now, and one of the interesting things about Wing Commander 4 is that they built a physical set for the intro where the Confed pilots are flying Hellcats, and you cut to them being destroyed by Lance dragons. And so there's a physical joystick. There's just all these cockpit components.
And we looked into what, I forget. Didn't we figure out what stick that was? With the button on top.
Yeah, it was.
Now I'm blanking all of a sudden.
It was a F4 or something.
Yeah, it was. Oh no, it was a real one. That's what it was.
Yeah,
it wasn't like it wasn't a Thrustmaster thing. It was like a legit.
No, they raided actual aircraft boneyards to build some of the sets in Wing 4. And which you can see here, the cockpit is very simple compared to the rendering in Wing 3.
Yep.
And there's the bubble canopy. That at least matches the game. Yep. More controls. Close up of the radar.
Oh, look at that hospital ship render.
Yep. Right? Yep, that's the hospital ship Amadeus. Supposed to be defended by these Hellcats, and things do not go well. Yep. And here is that shot of Blair Maniac taking off from the Star Wars Cantina at the end of the Commander 4 intro.
Yep.
There's our 5 view.
Flight deck view. That's good.
Now, after Wing Commander 3 and Wing Commander 4, the Hellcat makes one more appearance, which... Oh, I should mention the Wing Commander 4 novel. There is an additional variant of Hellcat, which is the so-called...
Oh, the black
Hellcat, which is a matte black Hellcat, which the Black Lance group is testing. Seether flies one early in the game. The pilot who gets shot down at Peleus is flying one in the jamming missions. It's like the next generation of Hellcat that has all the special ops technology, and they're painted matte black, which some fan artists out there should absolutely render, because I would love to see it.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So the fifth and final variant of the Hellcat comes at a very surprising place that
yes.
Let's say it angers Wing Commander fans, because you all have your preconceived notion of how the continuity should work. The Hellcat should be a new ship in Wing Commander 3.
We're the happiest angry people ever, though.
Oh, by the way, I'm going to show the landings from Wing Commander 4 first. These are cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you added to my notes, and you have to show the landings.
Yeah.
So these,
is it like, because in 4, you're forced to fly the Hellcat more than you are in 3, because it's that and the longbow.
It's your tie to Wing 3, you start off flying Hellcats and longbows. And so when you fly an atmospheric mission in the tier series, it plays that flick between the space and ground to cover that transition. So the fifth and most debated on the Usenet appearance of the Hellcat is right here, Wing Commander Academy. The first episode of Wing Commander Academy features... it opens with Hellcats. You see the pilots flying in Hellcats, and it's revealed that it's a trainer. And that they appear only in the first act of the first episode. After that, it's all scimitars. But... show you. So here they are. It seems to be a much lower rated version. It has 2 guns instead of 4. It has 2 missiles. And it's clearly a Hellcat. The cockpit looks just like the Wing Commander 3 version, the pre-render.
Yeah.
And interestingly, they take this same shape and use it for the Scimitar cockpits later. So there may be a design connection between the Scimitar and the Hellcat. Here's the ejecting seat.
Is Scimitar also made by Douglas Aerospace?
No, it's made by Origin Aerospace.
Oh, we might have
according to the old blueprints.
Industrial espionage.
And then So one of the explanations at the time was, it's like Wing Commander Academy. They're training on the Wing Commander Academy, the game, which let you fly the Wraith before it was flyable, so a couple of years before it was flyable, as like a way of training pilots who will someday fly them. So people, one theory was, maybe it is maybe it's the next generation of ship, and we're just seeing it in the trainer. But nope, there's also a shot of a Hellcat statue at the Academy. For some reason, it's not. The show is Wing Commander Academy. The location is the Terran Confederation Space Forces Flight School in Sirius, which has a statue of a Hellcat in 2654 with no background. Now, one of the retcons that people have done since then is the novel Action Stations introduces the Wildcat. It's a prequel novel, and it is just like the Wildcat comes before the Hellcat in real life, and there's Bearcat and Wing Commander 4. This seems to be the next generation. So it introduces the Wildcat, and you just make that connection. It's never described or seen.
No.
And so people said, oh, maybe these are Wildcats in Wing Commander Academy, not Hellcats. And I like that story. It's not official, but I really do like it.
We wrote an article saying that.
I will say...
We did. We wrote a Hellcat, and we actually wrote this article several years ago.
I will say that having spent some time with the production materials from the show, it is described as a Hellcat.
Okay.
And I can give you some of the backstory on why that is. Wing Commander Academy started life as what you might call Wing Commander 3 babies. And the idea was it would take all the assets from Wing Commander 3, the chip designs, the characters.
So like Muppet Babies.
Very, very similar. So it was
boy.
Wing Commander 3, but the characters were all newfound cadets. And so it was like young Cobra, young Flint, young Blair, young...
Shouldn't young Cobra be in a POW camp?
Just all of them in 2654 doing Wing Commander 1-ish stuff, but with the Wing Commander 3 ships, if you were going to franchise out and make Wing Commander 3. At some point, they made the decision, we're going to go with classic designs, and they adapted the Wing Commander 1 and 2 ships instead. But the very, very early concept drawings, like the one you see right here, had the original ships, and... that
is beautiful.
Production of the show got to the point where they were in the first act. So that's why those are there. There's also an arrow in the first act of that episode. And the people were always noticing that. And that
yes, we were.
That is why.
Yes, we were. We were angry teenagers at that moment.
I was not angry. I let them do what they want, and we worked out later. Sure. So the other thing I have in here is the Tiger Shark.
It just says McHale's, according to me.
Yeah, it's your Tiger Shark.
Oh, I thank you.
So the last bit of lore for the Hellcat is that, according to the Wing Commander Prophecy official guide, the Tiger Shark is, quote, the ultimate culmination of the Hellcat line. So I guess you have the Hellcat in Wing Commander 3 and 4, and then you have the Bearcat just after the war, and then you have the Tiger Shark. And there it is. So, as with the other Hellcat...
There is a real Tiger Cat from Grumman, but it's a little different.
We figured we would play a mission in...
I think it's underneath.
Yes, I hit it under the... There we go. We figured we'd play a mission in the Hellcat in Wing Commander 3. Everybody does Wing Commander 3.
Mm-hmm. Everybody does.
Skip the intro.
The first time I played Wing Commander 3, I skipped the intro and did not know it was there for quite a long time. And I was like, why am I just suddenly on this flight deck? I had no idea. And then the first time I figured it out, I felt like a giant jackass.
So, let's talk to Rachel here, and she's going to do her famous line. Look, you can even see in the game flow screen, it's the Hellcat. I wish we could zoom in and read that.
Rachel Coriolis, welcome to the Victory, Colonel. Heard you're flying with Hobbs on this one.
You got a problem with that, Chief?
No, sir, not at all. I think it's about time. That cat's one hell of a pilot. Here she is, one Hellcat 5.
See, it says F something Hellcat V.
Thanks. What about ordnance?
It's all taken care of. The captain downloads mission.
You see, it's very quiet.
Oh, sorry about that, guys. We're still learning the mix aspect of this.
Yeah, I had some oh, he says no sound?
You know what? Let me...
we will try again, then. Hold on.
Let me go to my mixer and see if we can figure that out real quick, because I would love to play that video for everybody.
Yeah, it was one of the things we really wanted to have in there.
There we go. Let us know if you hear sound now. Oh no, I've actually taken off.
We're there to take off.
Don't eject inside. Alright,
You have fired.
Well, we're about to be run out of the Confederation as a traitor.
Okay,
and look, there's the traitor right there.
I'm going to reload this with the Rachel's conversation.
Oh, you just... Oh, great. Now you're splattered on the ceiling of the Victory's flight deck.
It happens.
It did. Now we've proven it happens.
Okay, let's try this one again. Load the first mission. Okay, here's Rachel.
Chief Tech Rachel Coriolis, welcome to the Victory, Colonel. Heard you're flying with Hobbs on this one.
You got a problem with that, Chief?
No, sir, not at all. I think it's about time. That cat's one hell of a pilot. Here she is, one Hellcat 5. She's prepped, primed, loaded, locked, and ready to kick some ass.
Thanks. What about ordnance?
It's all taken care of. The captain downloads the mission specs to me. I dope out the weapons requirements, so you're set to go.
Oh yeah?
In the future, Colonel, you have the option of choosing your own weapons. Or you can trust my judgment and fly with my default loadout. I promise, Colonel, never to disappoint.
So guess what version of Wing Commander 3 this was. This is the PC release, the original DOS 1 running through this is the GOG download.
Let's take off in Hellcat and check it out.
It's just a beautiful
I love, these scenes where... I think the only scenes I skip in this game are the elevators.
Well, that's almost a game in and of itself to get away from the elevator before it starts playing.
Yes. Those are the only scenes in this game. And to me, it's just, remember how long you would look at this and you would hear the spin up of the disc and you're like, yes!
You would get right there and this would be...
Sit there.
Yeah, that screen that just flashed by would have been 5 minutes on a 486.
Yeah, and now...
And you would play on Invulnerable because you did not want to risk anything.
Yes.
So here we are in the Victory's flight deck. It's autopilot from its really shot in engine. Get off.
We call that a catapult launch.
If you ever played the 3DO version, it covers that with a flick and it continues the takeoff, but instead of shooting forward like an aircraft carrier, it just kind of and flies off. Which, yeah, is how it works in the game, but... So here's our front cockpit. As I mentioned earlier, there's no other size of the cockpits, unfortunately, that went out with Armada. And, in fact, this is the last time we're going to get cool cockpits just like this. But, 1200 DPS, 420 max. And, it's so pretty. Look, you can see everything that's done on the flight deck.
Yep, we got...
This game is great. Hellcat, there's a truck. Just like the one we were looking at earlier.
Yep.
And
fuel Bowsers.
Autopilot looks like they got a couple of killer
enemy craft, Colonel.
You can see I have neutron guns and ions rather than the lasers and manual.
I was promised.
I'm so excited when this happened. Somewhere because it's hard.
Maybe it's you upgraded to the 5-1.
The auto Hellcat. So I'll say again, the 5 indicates it's the 5th different ship to be called Hellcat. The variant, it would be like the F-42A, B, C. In the American system, which Wing Commander seems to use, the Thunderbolt is the P-47, Thunderbolt 2 is the A-10, and they're largely, in that case, entirely unrelated. So whatever the Hellcat 4 is, it may be a completely different ship, maybe from a different manufacturer.
One thing I love about the Thunderbolt and then the real P-47 is that the P-47 Thunderbolt, I think it's called the Jug. It looks like an old style jug. And the Wing Commander 3 Thunderbolt kind of looks like a bottom. It kind of looks like a milk jug as well, standing up.
Shield effect.
Mission objective accomplished.
Karathi do have ejection seats. It's one of those things lore is always like, there are no ejection seats in the Karathi. Always eject in the game.
Yeah, they seem fine with that. And then, of course, there's our upside-down carrier.
The space is 3D, guys. There's the chase camera. I mean, this is similar to football.
No, we don't.
Anyway, I can...
Need clearance, TCS Victory.
Excellent work, Colonel.
Let's compare this to a game from 2 years ago, Special Operations. 2 years prior, Special Operations we saw earlier, and it's just such a leap and bound ahead.
Yeah.
The other thing I've always wondered is if you're counting from reality, so is the F6F the Hellcat 1?
Well, yeah, it would be like so the Dash 3 is the first production one. And there's no Dash 4.
No, I mean, is it the Hellcat 1 to the Confederation? Or is it a totally different nation?
Oh.
Pretty slick flying, sir.
Well, I mean, yeah, like the British would call them different things. I forget what they called the Hellcat off the top of my head. They used to call the Wildcat the Marlet.
People and their aircraft names, man. So that was lots of stuff about the Hellcat. With that, we are going to go to the next part of our show. Oh, you know what? Before we go to the book club,
you know what it is? It was the Gannet. They called it the Grumman Gannet in England.
Cargo bay.
Like, boop, boop, boop. There we go.
Started the cargo bay.
Don't need.
All right, here's the part of the show where we show what we've added to the Wing Commander library this week. And this is a fast one because we've only added one thing, but it's a chunker. It's a box of boosters from the Wing Commander card game. These are impossible to find these days. When I see them on eBay, I try to grab them. I have a nice sealed set, and what that means is that in a future episode of this show, we're going to do a millennial style unboxing. We're going to open the cards. We'll talk about them. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's coming up in a future episode.
And it can go this way.
In fact, I remember the ads for this had the Vactoth flying backwards when it first came out. The clip part of the Vactoth. So our next part of the show is going to be End Run Book Club. Anyone who would like to chat about the middle 4 chapters of End Run can join us on Discord. There's a voice chat channel there. We'll be signing into it in just a moment. And we're just going to we'll have some focus questions, just chatting with the group on audio about End Run, which is the second Wing Commander novel. We did the first book club 2 weeks ago, and this is our next one.
Yeah, we're going to
do this. Okay, I have to join.
So do I. And we're not doing bad on time. We're at 2.5, so
It's about what we expected.
Roughly, yeah.
And one of the big pieces of feedback we've gotten from the show so far is that one of the pieces of background we got is shorter. It's hard to watch a 3-hour show, and we'll go 3 hours sometimes, but we are going to aim to be
an hour and 20. We did a lot of test shows, and we were hitting an hour and 20 like it was our job, an hour 40 maybe. But I think we had one that we pushed 2, and we were like, "How did we just do that?" Now, nothing. This seems like nothing. I don't even believe we've been sitting here this long. But yes, now I need to join. And also need to put on the appropriate. I remembered this time. This was made by. I should have looked up on the chat zone who made these, but someone made these years ago. It's a Tarawa hat with, of course, on the back. Spoiler! Oh no, I won't hold it that long.
Well, they better know by now that that's what's.
Yeah, if you've read your chapters for today, then you know. Oh, I just undid the latch too.
So I usually like to start these book clubs by going through and
a brief summary,
summarizing the different chapters. Of course, we have closed our outline, so it will just be just a moment as we open our book club notes. By the way, if anybody ever wants to be part of this process, you are welcome to join us in Discord at any time. We have a notes document we share. We have a whole lot of fun with this, as odd as it is. So here we are in End Run, Chapter 5. When last we left, do you remember how we left? We left with an invasion of Gorakar. The Theseus Terror... Vukartag. Sorry, Gorakar was earlier. No, Vukartag. So the Tarawa and the pilots, Bear and his pilots, have launched this cool amphibious assault on a Kilrathi planet.
Backwater.
And we're not sure why. Everyone is confused. We don't really know why we're doing this, but it was a totally successful operation. Everybody got blooded for the first time. Kevin Tolwyn, Tolwyn's nephew, he is blamed for a pilot dying, and he's at odds with everyone. And now as our section of the book opens, the Tarawa has been recalled from Vukartag suddenly as they're still doing the mop-up. The other carriers left there to do that. It has gone back to the Enigma sector where Wing Commander 2 takes place, back through the Enigma sector, and we find that there is a massed Confederation fleet preparing for battle. Doomsday says there's a balloon going up as they see the Concordia, the Wolfhound, Gettysburg, and Trafalgar. These are the major Confederation carrier groups, and they've all come together. They say it's the biggest assembly of ships in 6 years,
which is disturbing to me.
What happened in 2661?
Yeah, right.
There's a novel to write someday. Jason takes Captain O'Brien over to the Concordia for their briefing, and Bear takes him over to the Concordia for their briefing, and they find out that the reason the Confederation has attacked Vukartag, it's not because they want to establish a base here. It's too far. They would never be able to hold it. But this was the site of the Kilrathi Empress's, Dowager Empress's, birthplace castle. And so they have made a big point of allowing the Kilrathi to continue transmitting as they, literally desecrated this castle and then destroyed it. Psychops has figured out that this will cause the Kilrathi to go into a rage, and they will have to sortie. Their honor will demand that they sortie their best pilots, their home fleet, which they have been keeping in reserve all this time. These are the Drakai, the Imperial Guard that we meet occasionally in Wing Commander Special Ops Secret Missions 2 and Wing Commander 2. As Jason knows, the Concordia has tangled with them and won, but that's not common. These are the best of the best, and the Kilrathi at this point in the war have a huge advantage. They have about 20 carrier groups versus 8 on the Confederation side, and the goal is to even those odds. So the Kilrathi will have to move their 10 carrier groups that are in reserve to Vukartag to take it back in a show of force because their honor demands it, the honor of the Kilrathi head clan. So the Confederation fleet has massed here. When that happens, they're going to ambush the Kilrathi and try to even those odds as much as possible. And after this big briefing for all the groups, Bear and O'Brien go to a private briefing with Admiral Bambridge, who is this newly introduced character, but he's the big guy on top. He's Tall One's boss. He's the commander-in-chief. Not commander-in-chief, but yeah, he's Nimitz. He's Space Nimitz.
Except he fights in the
front. And so they take him to this top secret briefing, and they say, what do you think of this plan? And Bear says it's audacious, but you're going to get your ass kicked. Can I say ass?
Yeah, we already said that.
Discussed that.
Ass is Hall Grain.
And they say, yes, we ran simulations and we figured out exactly the same thing. Because Bear is perfect and everything he says is right. The next part of this plan is that the Tarawa will form a small fleet with a destroyer and a corvette, and it will sneak behind enemy lines, making its presence known in the process to split the Kilrathi fleet. The hope is they will send several carriers after it to keep their home system safe, which will even the odds of Vukartag, allow the Confederation to win that battle. And we're further told that this is a suicide mission. The crew of the Tarawa and its escorts are not expected to return. They're supposed to do as much damage as they can to Kilrathi shipbuilding, but that's it. There's not a next part. They're going to die out there. And, of course, the Captain O'Brien is furious about this. He's losing his composure because he's terrible and Bear is great. And
he already peed himself that day, too.
He did pee himself earlier that day.
Yeah, it's been a... Wow, who cares?
So that's Chapter 5.
Yep.
Chapter 6. Oh, my God. Chapter 6, the Tarawa sets off on her mission. And we start with this wonderful scene that's some of the best world building these novels have, where the 10 marine landing craft also boarded the Tarawa. And we get all these descriptions of the Marines in, how they work and what they do and all that. World building, because, in fact, I have them saved here. We have seen 2 types of conflict at this point in 1992 when the books came out. We have seen these guys who, they're guys with little red fuzzy hats in Wing Commander 1, and then guarding Jazz in Wing Commander 2, these armored space Marines. There's been no development of Marines or anything of that sort in Wing Commander at this point.
Yep.
So suddenly we have this amazing scene where he's describing all the weapons and the Marine operations and
weapons.
their uniforms that change color, and it's all really, really cool and atmospheric. And it's this classic Bill Forstchen mix of stuff from World War II mixed with futuristic stuff and
just
it's
insane
really
stuff
cool.
sometimes.
So Bear makes friends with the head of the Marines. You know, they come to blows of where they're going to store the landing craft, which again they really should have worked on.
Yeah, this is Bainbridge doesn't do all of this really the best, I will say.
But he makes friends with Colonel Merritt, who's in charge of the Marine Battalion. And the next step of the plan is that as the Tarawa is going through Kilrathi space, the Bear is going to fly this recon mission alone and basically lure them out. So Kilrathi light fighters follow him out, and they see the Tarawa, they get film footage, and they go back to their base. So he does that, and O'Brien is a coward, and he says, no, we have to kill them all. We can't let them survive. This is the only way for us to survive. So Bear and his pilots and the crew of the destroyer and so on, they plan how to let the Kilrathi escape so the mission can continue, and O'Brien ends up getting shamed into continuing to go forward.
That's one way to put it.
Chapter 7, we open with Prince Thrakath is now viewing the film footage, and he begins. It's too neat. He realizes that there's something wrong, but he doesn't quite know what. And we get the first big Kilrathi throne room, not throne room, but like leadership discussion. Yeah. There's Russ Mack and Gar, who are in charge of the space forces and the Imperial Legions, in that order. There's Baron Jukaga, who is the prime minister sort. And we introduce them all, and they all hate each other. They represent different factions in the Kilrathi Empire. They're all vying for power, and there's this additional aspect of Kilrathi as court infighting. So
it's very mob-like. Today when during I felt like that, very mobbish.
Yeah, and they basically have exactly the same discussion as the human characters did in the previous novel. Like, well, this is probably a trap, but we know the human carriers are tied up on the front lines of the Enigma sector or damaged, so it's okay to split the fleet. And Thrakath says, I will take 3 carriers back to Kilra to protect our home. Baron Jukaga, you take the rest of them, the other 7, and go to Vukar and avenge my mother's honor. So
Grandma.
Grandma. Yeah, it's Thrakath's grandmother. Although whether Thrakath is the grandson or the son of the Emperor is something that they don't necessarily always get right.
Yep.
We also have Jason Bear and Kevin Tolwyn kind of start to understand each other. They do a training flight together, and they have a mock dog fight, just like the beginning of Commander 4, and they start to respect each other, because, it's been hard for Kevin Tolwyn, too, with that name. It hasn't been a golden ticket. It's worked both ways.
It's definitely been a wait for him.
And then at the end of the novel, Bear and his ex-girlfriend, Svetlana, who is one of the Marines who has now boarded the Tarawa, hook up. Chapter 8 is the big one. This is probably the climax of the novel. Probably we should have saved this for next time, but we said 8. So the Tarawa attacks Kilra.
Well, it's the first half of the climax, I get, because you get the other half of it.
Yeah, well, we hear that the battle is... we hear Tolwyn and his battle is about to be joined at Vukartag. Meanwhile, the Tarawa arrives at Kilra. They find out that this Kilrathi, one of the Kilrathi moons, is... covered in carriers.
It's a giant
construction yard. Yep. And so they're going to deploy the Marines there to go in there, plant antimatter bombs, blow it all up. It's going to take 30 hours, and of course O'Brien is a coward, and he is like, I don't want to do that. Let's just fire a couple shots and get out of here. And
he wants to paintball the house and drive by. Basically.
Yeah,
he realistically break a window.
So the operation starts, and they're starting to battle the Kilrathi. They're hitting, land-based Kilrathi ships are coming up, and it's slowly depleting the Tarawa's fighter complement. And they start this operation, and O'Brien finally says, "No, we're leaving," and he starts pulling the fleet out with the Marines still on the planet.
Because one of the heavy carriers have shown up across system without them realizing.
Yes, Thrakath's forces, they missed the jump point, so they're delayed. So that's what's giving us this window to...
they clearly don't have a jump drive.
Yes, they have similar to our jump drive.
Yes.
So they...
weird stuff.
The the ship is trying to run away. Bear says, "No, I'm going to commit mutiny. I'm going to stop you. I'm going to get back to the ship. I'm going to kill you, you son of a bitch."
Yep.
But as he is going to kill that son of a bitch, the Tarawa is attacked by stealth fighters and the bridge is destroyed. And O'Brien is killed, and that's essentially the end of the chapter. We are now... the Marines are on the planet setting up. The battle is starting to be joined at Vukartag, and that's our cliffhanger.
And Bear takes command of the Tarawa, and then we swap over to Tolwyn at Vukar saying, "Man your planes." Yes.
And I will quickly show you some of the ships. I'm going to turn off the animated buddies. The Tarawa's fighter complement, ferrets, rapiers, and sabers. The Marine landing craft, they're described somewhat differently, but the previous Marine LCs that have the same 100-person complement we've seen in Wing Commander 1 are Drayman. We mentioned Confederation Minesweepers, which will be Clydesdale class from Wing Commander 2. The Kagamasha?
I thought it was Kagamasha.
Okay. The Corvette that's with the fleet will be a Venture class. There's the Gettysburg, which we can talk about in a little bit. Remember to bring that up.
Yep.
In fact, why don't we talk about it now? So the...
Well, no. You keep going through all these. I see what you're up to.
The Intrepid, which was the destroyer.
Yep. Concordia,
the Confederation fleet. The Wolfhound is said to be Bengal class, which matches the Tiger Claw. And on the Kilrathi side, we hear all about Sartha. By the way, if you want to simulate that mission, just load up Wing Commander Academy, put an asteroid field and 6 Sartha, and see if you can destroy 4 of them and chase the other 2 away. It's harder than it sounds.
Interesting.
We hear old-style Dralthi are being sortied. Once they get to Kirak, Grikaths attack the Tarawa during the fighting. Here's what Befortian calls stealth. They never call them Straka. I don't know why they call them stealth, but it's the Straka stealth fighter. Kilrathi Corvette. Kilrathi Destroyer. Kilrathi Cruiser. We don't actually see a cruiser, but we see the cruiser production yards on the moon.
Facilities on the moon.
And the Kilrathi Carriers. We hear so much about... At this point in Wing Commander continuity, the only Kilrathi carrier we have is the Snake Ear from Wing Commander 1. So there's your quick ship briefing.
Well, can you go... I'm going to steal the thunder for 1 second. Can you bring up the Concordia for a second, if you would?
Said and done.
So, last time when we had talked about Tarawa, I kept mentioning that there was a description about, the big carriers and the small carriers. And then when we were going back to do stuff, I found the quote that I had actually written in a CIC article that I wanted to include because I think it really helps highlight the differences between the big ships and the small ships. So this is a quote from a pilot on the USS Cabot, which is one of the light carriers. And what happened is he's going to land on the USS on an Essex class. And he says, "At that time, I had not operated from an Essex-class carrier, so to me it was routine to operate off a smaller CVL. The deck was much narrower. You had to be lined up coming in. There was no way to be off-center and make your landing. But the width was certainly much less on a CVL. Since a CVL was built on a cruiser hull, with all that flight deck added on top of it, it had a tendency to roll much more than the Essex-class. So in rough seas, you were fighting a pitching and rolling deck. The operations... were different in that, since we were on a smaller unit, the air group knew the shipboard people. Whereas on the Essex, you could be there for a year and not know the first lieutenant. But in our case, it seemed that you knew you were more of a family type affair than aboard the larger ships. The camaraderie was much better, I thought, than on the Essex class. Other than that, a CVL pilot was always a CVL pilot. They were proud of it. A CVL pilot would come in on an Essex-class carrier and would ask which runway to use just to put the needle into them, right or left runway, which one? Which I think is amazing when you look at the Concordia with its 2 runways by comparison.
Now, before we open up chat to the voice chat and Discord, by the way, you can all join the voice chat and Discord now and unmute if you'd like to start talking about this. I see there are folks in there, but I'm showing them all as muted. So if you unmute your mics, you can start talking, and
can do
hopefully we have this set up right.
Yeah. Quick introduction, hopefully.
Hello.
Hello.
There's Michael. I hear him.
Awesome.
Hello.
I hear the kid, Scout. I hear Chris.
Awesome.
Did Leah fall asleep? Oh, there he is.
No, I'm still here.
All right. No, eating ice cream, I hope. Yeah, there you go. That's good.
All right, so if folks are watching us, let us know if the audio is okay for this stuff.
Yep.
I'm going to go through a couple of the funny allusions we have in the book, because we talked about Milk Run several weeks ago, and it's full of literary references.
Yes.
Fortune stuff is not, but I did want to bring up some of the stuff in here.
He mentioned Shakespeare in there.
Yeah. So obviously the first one is the one that everybody has been laughing at forever, which is Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny screws his mother. It's the Kilrathi taunt that they think, their psychological warfare people think is really damaging, and humans laugh at it.
Scout, can you turn down your volume for a sec? Because I can hear your broadcast back through. No worries. We're not professionals or anything.
We're not professionals in
it's
any way.
okay.
Yeah, we had...
Oh, no, you said to turn down your volume. You didn't need to... Oh, there you go.
We have...
That should be fine.
You mentioned... Charlie mentioned Shakespeare, and in fact, I have the clip from Henry V I can play right now. This is the speech before the Battle of Agincourt. The Band of Brothers speech. And here we go.
Oh, that we now had here.
I don't think you have sound.
But 1/10,000 of those men in England that do no work today.
Oh, because I'm plugged into...
What's he that wishes so? My cousin Westmoreland? No, my fair cousin. If we are marked to die, we are enough to do our country loss. And if to live, the fewer men, the greater share of honor. God's will, I pray thee, wish not one man more. Rather, proclaim it, Westmoreland, through my host, that he which hath no stomach to this fight, let him depart. His passport shall be made, and crowns for convoy put into his purse. We would not die in that man's company that fears his fellowship to die with us. This day is called the Feast of Crispian. He that outlives this day and comes safe home will stand a tiptoe when this day is named, and rouse him at the name of Crispian. He that shall see this day and live old age will yearly, on the vigil, feast his neighbors and say, tomorrow is St. Crispin's. Then will he strip his sleeve and show his scars and say, these wounds I had on Crispin's day. Old men forget, yet all shall be forgot, but he'll remember with advantages what feats he did that day. Then shall our names, familiar in their mouths as household words, Harry the King, Bedford and Exeter, Warwick and Talbot, Salisbury and Gloucester, be in their flowing cups freshly remembered. This story shall the good man teach his son, and Crispian shall ne'er go by from this day to the ending of the world, but we in it shall be remembered. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers, for he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother. Be he ne'er so vile, this day shall gentle his condition. And gentlemen in England, now abed, shall think themselves accursed they were not here, and hold their manhood's chief, whiles any speaks that fought with us upon St. Crispin's Day!
When they cheer, I know it's ending.
Huzzah!
So that's the mood. Bainbridge specifically tells Tolwyn to look that speech up. That's the mood before the Battle of Foucartag. We also have Merrick quoting the Charge of the Light Brigade, Onward Road the 600. So it's this very raw military stuff.
Yes.
But perhaps the most ridiculous of the videos is... not videos.
No,
I have a ridiculous video for you. The most
Yes.
ridiculous references. There's a point where the Doomsday refers to John Wayne, and Bear's like, who's that? Like, oh, he's an ancient human military hero. There's all these contradicting stories about him in history. So they don't know they know what Bugs Bunny is, but they don't know what a movie is. So I put together a little video, and if you thought Wiggle Train was the stupidest thing I had on this show, just you wait.
I couldn't believe this.
Think you can make it, Pilgrim? Hey, Pilgrim, you're gonna need a couple of stitches. Whoa, take her easy there, Pilgrim. Well, don't fret about that, Pilgrim. Like I say, Pilgrim, you can eat here till you get back on your feet. Well, Pilgrim, you're a persistent cuss, Pilgrim. Well, take some advice, Pilgrim. Well, thanks for saving my life, Pilgrim. Well, cool off, Pilgrim. He sure will, but not after me. After you, Pilgrim. That's it, Pilgrim. Well, good luck, Pilgrim. But election day, Pilgrim. Step down, Pilgrim. Pilgrim. Pilgrim! Hey, Pilgrim. Pilgrim. Pilgrim! What is it now, Pilgrim? Think back, Pilgrim.
There's a pilgrim.
Yeah,
There
Pilgrims.
we go. I don't regret that at all.
Oh, Pilgrims. Pilgrims everywhere.
So, let's join the voice chat now, and we will talk and run.
Oh, boy.
Hopefully the voice chat is working.
Yeah, I hear something because something was tapping in my ear.
Lehigh, you are muted still.
No, that was fine.
Oh, I know. I just want to make sure there's no bleed through on my end.
Okay, you sound great, actually.
You
You
sound
sound better
good.
than anybody else.
Yeah, everybody should kind of talk up a little bit if you'd like.
In fact, I'm going to up everyone.
Oh, yeah, he's going to up the...
I'm going to up some other folks' volume.
Certainly.
Audio, I have no brain for audio, so we're taking extra time to learn this stuff. But hopefully you can all talk right now, and let's...
Sound good?
Yeah, hear you all now.
So, what question? I feel like we should move that first question for a bit, because otherwise it's just me talking.
Well, let me do the... let's talk about the actors.
Oh, okay, certainly. Let's do casting.
As before, so there's not so many exciting new characters, because we're almost done the book at this point, but we do have Admiral Bambridge, Merritt, Jukaga, and everybody, and before the show, I asked everybody for suggestions, and we got only a couple, because these characters are very generic at this point.
Yeah, it was kind of hard to pick some of them.
Yeah, Merritt and Grierson are just... There's nobody, but
yes,
we have. Yeah. You want to explain
so
this
for Bambridge, I went with Henry Fonda. That is Henry Fonda playing Chester Nimitz in the 1976 movie Midway, and I'm pretty sure that I was in love with that movie around the time I was reading these books. So I'm pretty confident that's who I've always thought Bambridge looked like, no matter what. And he seems like a pretty good. I mean, this description, the white hair, the balding, seriousness.
This was mine, Robert Mitchum, who probably know him from Longest Day, but he was also he was the lead in War and Remembrance. He was the destroyer captain, and you go through World War II, and I that's how I always imagined him. I remember my dad watching that miniseries over and over again. And here we have
Mike's.
Yeah, so I have not really seen many World War II movies, but I have seen Independence Day. And Robert Loggia, he plays the U.S. Marine Corps general. I forget exactly.
Yeah,
but, I think... he fits the description to a T. He's maybe a little bit tougher than Bambridge is, but yeah, that's who I pictured.
And no offense to Robert Loggia, but I just imagine him as the boss from Big, so he's not as threatening.
I think of him as Frank Lopez from Scarface.
No, that's a character actor for you.
Yeah.
And we have
Lehigh.
Mr. Lehigh.
Yeah, we have to tell them because they can't see it yet. We have to. I'll do that. I'll be the one queuing.
Yeah, okay. It's an actor by the name of Alan Oppenheimer, and it just so happened that while we were reading this book, all of us have been watching Deep Space Nine recently, and I hit the end of season 2, and this actor makes an appearance. He's the captain of I think it's the Odyssey.
Yeah, the one that gets
the Odyssey. Yep.
Right, and he just really fits the bill. He's got that swagger of a Starfleet captain, and he just really fit the bill for me. He was very authoritative, but also still kind of a little bit warm, like Bambridge is.
Say for those families who didn't evacuate.
No, they evacuated.
Yeah, that really bothered me.
No, they don't. Dax says they should do that, and he goes, well, "What are you talking about?"
Oh, I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah, then he gets them all killed.
Well, and it's also a Galaxy-class ship. There's families on there after 7 seasons of next gen. So.
And this was the only suggestion I got from Merritt, which is
yeah.
you.
So I was trying to think of somebody who looked like hell in a World War II movie that you could maybe break some teeth. So I thought, Brad Pitt, Fury, and Fight Club kind of mixed could become Merritt.
Okay.
That's all I got.
That's all the casting we have. If anybody else has any suggestions, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Yeah, I have one. So Grierson, I didn't send a picture. Sorry. But for Grierson, I always picture not because of anything he does or says, but because of the name, David Allen Greer, the actor. I just every time I see it, it just pops into my head, just due to the simple name similarity.
Okay, so I'm now picturing that scene where Grierson comes over to help push O'Brien along, and now I'm picturing David Greer be like, "Come on, we got full throttle, push up to flank speed right now." In living color.
Yeah, can't you imagine him just laying some pressure on a pasty white guy and O'Brien sort of backing out?
I mean.
I can see that.
It's disturbing, but I can see that now. Great, that's an image we're never going to get rid of. But especially in that one scene.
I laughed at first, but then as I was picturing it, I'm like, that's not the craziest idea.
That's also how our show got the name All Wings Considered.
Yeah, that's true. It was. Yeah, we were just screwing around, and that wouldn't work. Oh my God, it will.
So let me start up by asking, O'Brien, good, bad, or neither? Did he get what he deserved? What's your analysis? Floor is open.
He was a terrible captain.
Yeah, the terrible Commodore.
Is he terrible? Is he a man in a world he never made? What's your opinion?
It's complicated with O'Brien. He's definitely way out of his league. Like, he has no place being in, especially in command of this strike force.
Definitely.
But it's like you kind of feel bad for the guy because he thought he was getting into what was supposed to be a fairly easy job, and then everything got completely flipped on him. And maybe he's not reacting in the way a military leader should be reacting, but he's definitely reacting in the way a human being, just a regular person, would be reacting. So did he get what he deserved? I don't think he deserved it, but I mean, he definitely didn't deserve to be in charge of that mission.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I don't think he needed to have because he has the death in combat, which you think that's like him getting his comeuppance, but if anything, it's not. Because what really should happen is Bear should get to that bridge, arrest him, and then bring him back for court-martialing. So he can be busted down to ensign and then be running a transport again. Right? Instead of...
Which is really something that's what he's built for. He's not built for this kind of mission.
No, he's somebody who thought, look, I'm going to get my, that red combat tag and then keep rising because I commanded a carrier. Carriers are what our fleet runs on. So, thinking that he's going to, just keep rising. Yeah, he's just looking for his, 6-month stint, and then he wants to go back to HQ and keep adding flags to his rank.
Yeah, it's one thing I noticed is that there's no real indication that O'Brien is himself trying to climb this way. Yeah, he has been put in this situation because apparently he has both friends and enemies back at headquarters. But all he seems to want to do is design and build transports. He's giving the tour, and he seems to not like the carrier. He's proud of the transports he made. So yeah, as a kid, I certainly saw that guy's a dick, and I hate him, and he's bad, and Bear is wonderful. But looking back at it again, I think it's a little bit more complex.
It's really unfortunate what happened to him. He didn't deserve to die. He probably deserved, like what you said, just to get back to where he belongs, or just back to civilian life or something.
Because in the end, as odd as it sounds, he gets a hero's death.
Now, speaking for the opposite side of the coin, what about Bear? Is he up for what lies ahead? Is he okay without a captain? Let's analyze his performance so far.
So my thoughts on Bear is that he can be really confusing at times. He goes from acting like, the responsible dad who wants to give advice, and then you remember that he's only 25. And it shows at times when he's thinking things or saying things. I mean, he certainly acts like to be blunt, right? A horny 25-year-old guy at a few moments in time where you're like, why is that included there? But then, he gets really protective of his pilots. And, he tries to give all this, when I was your age lecture to Kevin. And it's like, but you're not necessarily that much older to be doing this just yet.
Yeah, it almost seems cloying. It's like, hey, it's like a senior talking to a
freshman.
Yeah. Again, going back in time, when I first read this book, I was like, oh, Bear's the good guy. I love him.
Yes.
Admiral Tolwyn loves him. Admiral Tolwyn loves me. He must be great. But now I see all these things that make me question that. Like, he breaks calm silence to tell Svetlana he loves her during that final battle. Like that's sweet, maybe, but it's terrible because there's 1,500 other people there who are about to die. It's just all these little things, like when he's checking out the ensign. Like, he's not quite as mature as you assume he is, and it'll be interesting to see how that develops in the next 2 books.
He's mature when you're reading it at the age of 15.
Yes. You're like, I want to be just like him, because you're kind of thinking that same way.
And he is a pretty good role model for that kind of person, for these young pilots. Like, I think he's a very good leader in that regard. But then when you see him like go to that other side, when he's taunting the Kilrathi, and he's doing all like the less mature stuff. He definitely he's more mature, but then he's still a kid at the same time. He's still got some learning to do.
There's one little bit.
Tolwyn pointed that out, and he said, he would be a good wing commander for this position because there were so many young people, and he was kind of a young person, yet with all this experience.
Yeah, there was one point that stood out for me where he gets the report that they've lost one of the ferrets, and his inner monologue is, he didn't want to bring himself to ask who it was. And like, you're the wing commander. Yeah. You need that information.
There are a few points kind of like that where you see those type things pop up with him, especially during that phase.
And what about Kevin? We know a little bit more about Kevin. We've seen them dogfight, and we kind of have the idea that Kevin is okay now. How are you feeling?
For me, Kevin, as a kid, you think, oh, look at, here's the rich kid who has everything handed to him, and you get suckered in though to he's transforming, right? He's understanding that he has innate talents that can make him excel. It's not just that name and who his uncle is, and especially as we get to the later novels, you'll see, right, how he can, just like Bear, continues to kind of evolve, and you get, it's like when you hear about him in the Wing Commander 3 novel, you're like, oh, Kevin's back. It's so awesome to see, right?
Kevin's gonna be back?
Yeah. I think, I like Kevin, but I feel like Dr. Forstchen, he's just not great at developing him as a character. It's like that point where they go off and they do their little combat practice. It's like that he's just taking him out of the bucket of characters you're supposed to like, or characters you're not supposed to like, and then putting him in the bucket of characters you are supposed to like. It's just like kind of flipping a switch. I like him as a character, and I like that he comes down, but I just feel like something was just missed there.
Speaking of flipping a switch, one thing I noticed in these chapters is that we are getting the political Forstchen now. We're starting to have him put his modern-day politics in characters' mouths, which, of course, we'll see a whole lot more of in Fleet Action. But I pulled out 2 quotes false here.
Colors.
The first are false colors, but
both of them,
here's Forstchen speaking through Tolwyn when Tolwyn is chatting with Bear about how it's a suicide mission, and Tolwyn says, "A system worth fighting for makes the pledge to go both ways. You fight for us, but by God, we'll sacrifice everything we have to get you back. If you're willing to risk your life to protect us, then we're willing to risk all our treasures, our careers, everything to bring you back. No one gets left behind, ever. A country that abandons its soldiers and does nothing to save them isn't worth a pinch of owl dung." Which, first of all, amazing metaphor, Admiral Sir Geoffrey Tolwyn.
Yeah, right?
But also, this is very much the start of Bill Forstchen's pro-military conservative politics showing up in these characters. And that one's not so bad. I remember reading that as a kid, like, of course.
Yeah, you don't...
Of course the country defends its warriors. That makes sense. I mean, it kind of is uncomfortable now because you can imagine that on like a dime store cowboy novel about how the kids today don't understand the world. But that makes sense to me. But then we get...
this one.
We get this one, which is really that's where he starts jabbing at Democrats in the 90s. Take that, Clinton.
But then he screws up our own kind of canon with these lengths of time.
So this is from the conversation between Bambridge and Tolwyn, where they're arguing about whether or not they should save the Tarawa. You remember the budget fights long before this war ever started, when we were begging like paupers for the money to build the shipyards which would turn out capital ships? Now we're paying for it. It takes 10 years just to build a yard and train the construction personnel, and 5 years after that to build a carrier in the yard. It kills me. Those same political bastards who denied us the funds now blame us for the defeats.
And he almost kind of underlines that later when they're attacking Kilra, when he's talking about the Kilrathi engineers and the shipyards.
Yeah,
he's
going
kind
to the train
kind
personnel.
of making that in bold, just so you make sure you realize how important they are.
But that's also a point, too, he beats to death, because that comes back in Action Stations,
Yeah, we're gonna
where
hear
they're
that a lot.
beating that again, right?
In-
Senator Moore!
In every Fortune novel.
Yeah.
In Wing Commander and otherwise, you'll kind of see that. So that takes me to something that's really interesting about this particular section of the book, which is that I am much more interested in the thing they don't show us, which is the battle for Vukartag, the Operation Backlash itself. We see in the eve of battle, we saw the Shakespeare stuff, we see the conversation between Tolwyn and Bambridge, and we hear these destroyers arrive. We hear that the destroyers are starting to bombard the planet, and it's about to start. And there is all this incredible world building in there that happens in the background, where he essentially writes the novel Action Stations years early, the prototype version, and we learn all about these characters' backstories. Apparently Big Duke 1, the Marine Commandant, and Bambridge and Tolwyn were all at the academy together before the war. It's very much this class of 1846 thing, and they all happen to be fighting to build the fleet before the war. And
it's like the class.
We learned about Tolwyn's wife, who is never mentioned anywhere else before this, who was introduced to him by Bambridge, and it's all just in passing, and it's so much more interesting than the story I'm reading, honestly. And that's one of the reasons I love these kinds of books, is going through and getting the world that they build. And I mentioned earlier with the Marine stuff, there's so much world building.
Yeah, all the kick-ass, ridiculous guns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I was actually just looking at that page.
Oh, yeah.
He's describing the arm.
Yeah, we're also packing heat today.
Yes, we've got a couple of...
I believe this is
a couple of M7 laser confed laser rifles. These are from Wing Commander 4. We figured we'd bring out the actual props for this. So... pew, 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 pew.
This is mine's a mass driver. Flush it, right? Cool. Or neutron minigun. Yeah, he just invents the most ridiculous... It's like, those are not single-person weapons, it sounds like.
We have a horniness meter where we list all the sex
That's
stuff.
That's great segue.
But this is... No, I'm going back to this.
Okay.
So, he knows... he may not know human realistic characters or... things like that. But boy, does he know how to get a teenage boy interested in something.
Yeah.
He does it perfectly. A little military designation there, a list of cool futuristic guns, and then mentioning something from real life. He mentions the MREs, and then, they have color-changing uniforms. That's so interesting. And he just draws you in so well and builds this. He takes this nucleus of Wing Commander and expands it outwards.
Yeah, that's what I always loved, because for me, where you look at I always loved trying to find every ship and what ship could it be? What was it doing? What were all these carriers doing? What were they doing here? What were they doing there?
It's like getting a code and trying to crack it.
Yeah, because you get a list of things right in this, try to figure out, how many carriers did Confed have before this? When did they all go down? And you grab it. I love to try to grab it, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's almost like he I know fan fiction, it's not quite what it used to be back in the 90s, but it's this is good fan fiction. He's inventing this stuff, but he's making it interesting rather than it just being kind of like powdered sugar you're putting on top of something.
Yeah.
And I'm going to theorize that the reason this is such good fan fiction compared to actual fan fiction is because he doesn't necessarily give a shit.
Oh, yeah, this
is work for hire. He's been told, take this video game and turn it into a book.
Mm-hmm.
And so he builds this world that is not constrained by necessarily what fans think it should be or what they want it to be. It's what he thinks is kind of interesting. And I think the series as a whole benefits from it. Because if you read like a fan fiction thing, the fan fiction version of this would be, and the 8th Marine landed here, and the 9th Marine landed at this coordinates, and the 42nd, it would be just lists of things. But here it's this intentional tease, and it works so much better.
Yes, that reminds me of a series I started reading several years ago called Red Gambit, which is this whole, a Third World War. It basically takes this thing called Operation Unthinkable, which was a British plan to attack the Soviets right as the war in Germany ended. And it is written by a miniature war gamer. So all the books, they literally are 3 feet tall. And each one is 5 or 6 inches thick, and I skip entire sections of the battle because it's like Bill walked 3 steps and he did this, and it's like I don't give a shit about any of this. Get me to the good stuff again.
I've got a couple of examples of world building that I pulled out as being especially cool.
Oh yeah, I threw some in there. Yeah.
From the start of Chapter 5, a flight of 4 rapiers standing sentry at the jump point pulled a perfect flyby, breaking into a diamond pattern and rolling as they shot past Tarawa. Only one group of pilots can fly that well, Janice said, coming up to sit by Jason's side to watch the show. And I just love that line so much, because first of all, it's you. Those pilots are you from Wing Commander 2. They're the Concordia. We've never necessarily been told that the Concordia pilots are the best in the world, but you read that, and can't you just see the diamond formation of those green rapiers with the lightning bolts on the wing? You just right in there as soon as the chapter starts. Then there's a line from Jason when... he's explaining why this line from Bear, where he's explaining why this operation is a bad idea, and he's explaining what the Drakai are, without ever using the word Drakai. And he says, these won't be second-rate flyers, the home guard variety who are rusty and wear gold-plated armor. These will be their elite forces. Home fleet assignment in the Karathi Empire goes only to veterans and is considered an honor since they're under the direct eyes of the Emperor himself. It's also Karathi tradition to keep the best in reserve to protect the imperial throne, not only from external enemies, but also internal. It's part and parcel of their political system. If you don't keep the best flyers in your vest pocket, one of your potential rivals might have his. And this is the introduction to Karathi court politics, which I think we'll talk about in a minute, and it's just... It's so much more than you knew about Wing Commander before, and you're interested. And I love that introduction as an aside, that there are these home guard Karathi pilots who wear gold-plated armor who are just like the losers, the showy losers, and we'll never hear about them again, but it's that one little aside, like, oh, neat.
Yeah.
What I really like about that one, it's something like you kind of knew about. Like this, he's not really telling us much more than we already knew about the Drakai, but he's just fleshing it out. He's giving it more depth.
Yeah. And then the third of these was when Bear is... We have the great scene where he looks at all the weapons and stuff, and we hear about the Marines. I won't read that because it's long.
Yeah, I did put way too long in there.
Then he's talking to one of the Marines who's offering him a souvenir, who says, it was a beautiful work of art with a free-flowing style representing a Karathi female, but it was done in an abstract, so it was hard to tell for sure. It conveyed a sense of feline-like grace and beauty that he found appealing. It was a side of the Karathi he had never tried to think about, the fact that it went beyond war, that they also had private lives, had their own literature, music, and art traditions, that they were even older than those of humans. He had once heard a cycle of Karathi poetry about the loss of a lover, being read by Hobbes, and found it strangely moving. I just thought that was interesting. It's this...
Yeah, it's...
I really wish we could hear what that cycle of poetry was.
Now there's the fan fiction we have to write.
That's right. Yeah, because I just love all the and like the little tech he introduces, and then somehow he gets like really into, right? Like the anti-radar missile is something that pops up over and over again.
Yeah,
he loves that. Yeah, and I just love that because it's, he makes it sound like it's this insanely expensive piece of equipment that then breaks in, right? So it's one missile and it tracks radars and it splits into 50, and then, right, you can actually link them with a saber, so they shoot off, what is it? I think 50 missiles or something. They turns into 1,400 individual antimatter warheads. So once again, we're talking about heavy weapons again, and they talk about like computing, how they go one place if one shuts down, and I just loved all of that stuff. Like this little bit of tech that he then pulls all this other stuff out of. Like the point defense systems of the mass drivers. Like whenever I think of a torpedo run, I used to picture after this, right? All of the carriers lighting up with their point defenses trying to shoot down my torpedoes like will happen in Prophecy and later games.
Yeah, he does such a good job of expanding the basis of Wing Commander with stuff that seems reasonable in the setting of Wing Commander.
Yeah.
And then we would go and play Wing Commander 3 and be like, oh, none of that's here.
Yeah.
Remember that.
Why isn't this on the carrier? Yeah.
So, speaking about the one scene we get here that is, I think, the first time in any of the novels, and it's almost like, it's almost a prototype of what we will see later, is the Kilrathi courtroom drama stuff. Last chapter, we had said that the Kilrathi, Thrakath seemed unusually intelligent. You know, he's often, in later novels, he's portrayed as a buffoon. He's this, caricature, whatever the racist caricature of a space cat is, who's just he's always wrong and he gambles incorrectly and he's overly sure of himself. But in End Run, he's not. Until now, we have this introduction of Kilrathi, the Kilrathi court. So you have the head of the Kilrathi army, the head of the Kilrathi navy, the Baron Jukaga, who will be very important much later, and they're all trying to stab each other in the back. And I'm curious what folks thought about that.
That's what reminded me of like the mob scene, like something from The Godfather. Like they're all sitting down for a meeting, and they all have similar interests, but they also have their own desires to follow. So all of them, like Jukaga and Thraka, they're clearly vying to be the Godfather, and Gar and Rosmak, they are the top lieutenants. Just they just want to kill people, right?
And I will say that a lot of the Kilrathi psychology in these scenes, and one thing you notice, there are no clans mentioned yet. We don't know that it's the Kiranka and the Kaira.
Yeah, I think they just say the word.
It's just their
once,
names.
Yeah.
They mention that Jukaga's from a lesser family than Thrakath, but that's it. So the kind of the details of the Kilrathi system have not been finalized yet, but this interaction and how they react to things is based on a document from the Wing Commander Bible, which is the Xenoanthropological Profile of the Kilrathi, which is reprinted in part in Victory Streak. Yeah. But yeah, any other thoughts about this courtroom drama?
It's interesting in that I know we touched on this, well, not in the last discussion, but in the interim, that there's a great deal of cultural bleed-through with imperialist Japan during World War II, and how there definitely seems to be a certain amount. I'm using broad strokes here. I'm not saying that he's lifting directly from history, but it seems like Forstchen.
Oh, he totally is.
Well, I would say less so in this scene than in the previous scene with the Crown Prince, telling his subordinate
go kill yourself.
Go kill yourself.
Yeah.
Well, that's just how the internet works these days.
Oh yeah. You brought a hot.
But there's definitely a certain amount of coloring, I guess you could say, in this situation, especially with. I get the feeling that Baron Jukaga is I don't want to say the opposite of not Bainbridge or Tolwyn even later on, but he is a projection of the author to say almost like this would be the other side of. I'm not rationalizing this.
No, I know. I'm trying to think. Yeah, because you know what you're saying. Like he is. He's a. I'm trying to equate too. Yeah.
To me,
like Steve Bannon.
Well, we've already mentioned how Bear, he's like everything he does is right and he's perfect. Mm-hmm. Like it almost feels like Baron Jukaga's kind of the parallel on the Kilrathi side.
Yeah,
like it's almost like he got like an advanced copy of the book and he's just explaining the plot.
Yeah,
because he knows everything that the humans are up to, like literally everything.
Yeah, and we'll later find out why he learns that in later books. We'll get why he has this odd love of humanity.
And then the big bad Thrakath, he shoots him down and tells him how dumb he is, and so it's like almost exactly what's going on with Bear and Captain O'Brien.
And one of the interesting things about Jukaga is that it matters for Bear to be the character that you immediately connect with. It doesn't from Drukaga. That's not going to pay off for another book.
Yeah.
So it's interesting the degree of setting up for fleet action. While we're talking about the Kilrathi, I wanted to point out one of the cases where the idea of the author not necessarily giving a shit about the world, we kind of notice. Which is this quote about Kilra, which is, as he turned across the surface of the moon, the home planet of the Kilrathi Empire came into view. Now, note, we have not seen Kilra in the Wing Commander visually yet. It says, it looks similar to Earth, a beautiful blue-green sphere hanging in the blackness. He was tempted to push on in, but he knew it was useless, and besides, there was a more important target right here. So that does not... I have a picture of Kilra in Wing Commander. And here's a map of the Kilra system from Wing Commander...
Prophecy?
Prophecy. I'll put it right over Dunderill's head. There's a picture of the planet itself at the bottom left. And it's brown with lava. It's not a beautiful green planet like Earth. My theory is maybe he was thinking the beginning of Wing Commander 2 where you see Katithrak Mang, which does look like Earth. And I'll notice that we're 2 books in, and this mistake has been made twice now, because Ralga describes Kilra as having, quote, metallic splendor in Freedom Flight. So I just wanted to tack that on to the Kilrathi part.
Interesting.
So let's talk about history.
Did you want to do that, or should we save that? Let's save the meter for the very end. I think that's a nice light moment to end on, right? All that, yeah. That's
the horniness meter.
Yeah,
okay.
Yes, let's save that for kind of. We could finish off on that. Oh, and
here, let's just add for the record 2 more of O'Brien's names for Bear for the list, which is Boneski and Barnoski.
Yeah.
So we've been tracking those as we go, and since O'Brien is now spinning space junk, that's probably the end of the list.
Yeah. I don't think it ever pops up again or anybody else.
So I will ask, and I know you will answer, what is Operation Backlash based on historically?
So what Fortune has done is it's basically the Battle of Midway, but he puts a bunch of different spins on it, right? We already know like the idea of the Tarawa being the end run, like the Doolittle raid, sure, because they're attacking the Kilrathi capital, but in the book setting, I would argue that it's actually so let me actually start with the real world. So in the spring of 1942, the Japanese have gone 6 months absolutely just dominating their theater of operations. The United States is pushed back to Pearl Harbor. And Japan is unprepared for its level of success. It did not think it was going to get all these victories this quickly. So they then had to decide, well, what are we going to do? Like, where should we go next? And they had all these different options. And Admiral Yamamoto, he wants to get the American fleet, in particular the carriers. So you have to attack something that will draw the Americans out. And he thinks, well, let's attack Midway. It's essentially the extreme end of the Hawaiian chain. Why is Bugs Bunny getting in here? It's the extreme end of the Hawaiian chain, and if the Japanese had took over the airbase there, they could then do some harassing raids on Pearl Harbor. It would make Pearl Harbor difficult to hold, and so forth. So the Americans would have to come out and defend it. Well, Vukertag, right? The honor of the imperial family requires that they do something to redeem that, right? So they have to sortie to go defend it. And the Japanese wanted to do just that. But the Japanese didn't want to do that. The imperial command was like, Yamamoto, this is not... What the hell are we going to get from that? No. We want to attack Port Moresby on the southern coast of Papua New Guinea. We want to go after Fiji. We want to cut off Australia's line of communication with America. And, well... what happens instead, though, is Jimmy Doolittle and his raiders show up over Tokyo in April of 1942, and because this happens, and the Japanese very quickly realize it's from these planes were launched from American carriers, that they need to destroy the carrier threat. So the Midway operation gets green-lighted by the first end run in that regard. And in Fortune's case, he reverses some of the parts, right? So instead... because he also takes a historical confusion. So at the Battle of Midway, at the same time, the Japanese also attacked the United States proper, as in Alaska. Attu and Kiska are 2 of the Aleutian Islands. And earlier historical research, they thought that, that was a diversion. if the Japanese attacked up there, so the American carriers wouldn't know where to go. Should they deploy to Midway or should they deploy up to Attu and Kiska? In reality, the Japanese were like, well, we've got Midway going on. We have this window. Let's also go after the Aleutians. So they're two completely different operations as we know that today. But in Forston's time, our understanding was that they were two combined events, that they were a part of the same plan. So he uses that, right, to cause the split, where you have the Confederation, their Point Luck. So the Americans at Midway, we stationed northeast of Midway Atoll at a position literally called Point Luck. And for the Confederation, that's one jump away from Vuker. So when they're going to kind of jump in and catch the Kilrathi when they are fully deployed for an amphibious assault. So their troops are landing, their fighters and bombers are all geared more for anti-ground as opposed to anti-ship, which is kind of what happens at Midway, except the United States, we catch the Japanese with their planes refueling and rearming. So they're going through a flight cycle, so they can't effectively defend themselves and launch a counterstrike against the American carriers. Although there is no giant fleet base involved in this thing where you're destroying all this, that's something that's kind of completely different. But he takes a lot of those ideas from Midway, Doolittle, the Aleutians, and kind of mixes them all up in a different way that makes for a very enjoyable retelling of that. I mean, it's what clearly suckered me in because I was like, I know this. I know what's happening here. And they do a lot of the same things, right? Because he takes pieces from Pearl Harbor, too, like all of the probes and ships in the Enigma sector making all those radio communications to make it seem like our carriers are over there. The Japanese did the same thing before Pearl Harbor that made it seem like their carriers were on the complete opposite side of the planet and not just north of Pearl Harbor and things like that. But yeah, that's essentially your basics of it. He takes the Japanese decisive battle theory and Midway and puts them into the washing machine, and out he pops this, which is pretty good.
Well, let me go around the table to some of our folks from other places and just get some general thoughts. Well, where do we stand right now in all this?
Can I ask? I have one question.
Okay.
This is what I didn't want to ask you earlier because it's how we picture things, right? It was like when Chris earlier said that he pictured David Allen Greer as Grierson. So as a kid, when I used to read the description of the shipyards, and now reading it now, I have no idea how I came up with this. How did all of you guys picture what that moon base looked like? Like, how did you picture those carriers were on the moon?
For me, it was 100% Trantor, the city planet from Foundation, which I guess you would say Coruscant today would be the hip version of that. Huh. But elaborate city planet.
I probably imagined something, without having actually seen it, I imagined something similar to what we eventually saw as the Pegasus Naval Base in the movie.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. I guess the best way to detail it would basically be like the shipyards at the opening of the Wing Commander movie, where it was more utilitarian than anything really city-like, I would say. Yeah. I mean, obviously it's explained as a city in the book, but something addressed about, it being a shipyard, it being of having military purpose, less city, more industrial complex type of thing.
Yeah, I definitely see it kind of like the industrial complex, but then just like with a dry dock, basically, is kind of what I pictured. Like World War II dry dock, where you have like the hull of the ship and, set up to work on it from all angles.
So, as a kid, I pictured it somehow like the Death Star. Like, it was, like these carrier slips weren't... Because it's very clear that now they're flat on the surface and, they have durasteel bunkers around them and shields. But for whatever reason, I pictured it like the carrier was being built, below the surface of the moon, so it could launch straight out. So there was like a giant durasteel door, and that's because when Bear floats over and he's shooting at the front armor in front of the Marines when they're running through the hangar. I don't know why, but that always gave me that illusion. And then reading it now, I'm like, how did I generate that? Like, that's not at all how it's described. It's very clear. It's a bunch it's a bunch of buildings on the surface, and then these giant dry dock slips for the carriers and cruisers and everything else to launch out of.
All right, so any other thoughts folks want to bring up that I have not yet so far?
There's only one thing go ahead, Mike.
I was just gonna say I really liked Banbridge as a character. Like you always see Tolwyn in the games, and it was really just neat to be like, oh, this guy's Tolwyn's boss. That's pretty intense, and I really just liked seeing him as a character and a good counterpart to Tolwyn. At least the Tolwyn from the games. Like I felt like the Tolwyn in the book is a bit more warm-hearted than the ones in the game.
Yeah, he's definitely more emotional.
Strongly agree. I mean, he matches the Tolwyn in the Special Operations discs, who is very, very sweet to you. But he's not Malcolm McDowell. That's for darn sure.
And that's what I wanted to touch on too, because there's actually that part where Tolwyn and Bainbridge kind of mix it up, and Tolwyn tells him, you're talking about throwing away 1,500 men like they're nothing, which is something that the Malcolm McDowell version of Tolwyn would pretty much, I wouldn't say he would do it recklessly, but he probably wouldn't blink an eye considering what he turned into by Price of Freedom.
Absolutely, and that's a retcon in Wing Commander 3 and 4, because the reason Tolwyn hates you so much in Wing Commander 2 is specifically that you are endangering his people and his carrier. And everybody you talk to when you get to the Concordia, Sparks, Angel, when you try to talk shit about Tolwyn, they come back and they say, no, he's a great commander. You just don't understand. He has responsibilities. And yeah, that's the Tolwyn at this point who cares about his people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely such a different. But then when we think about him, whereas the game designers obviously probably were not thinking in the same regards with it. Where for us, we're reading end rather than the events of Fleet Action, and you think, well, that's going to harden anybody. What happens in that, right? And then how you have to then somehow, without I guess spoiling just for Scout, but have somehow take that and then pursue into Wing Commander 3 to try to finish the war or at least survive.
Well, you want to run down our horniness meter just because...
yes.
We did this for Milk Run, and I think we've reached peak horniness in End Run.
Yeah, because there wasn't really as much... Well, the chapters 1 through 4 have a teeny bit.
There's like that flirting between Svetlana and Jason, but they really ramp it up in Chapter 5.
Yeah.
When Bear is talking to Tolwyn about the Tarawa, and Tolwyn gives this description.
Which I love in multiple ways.
First commands sometimes turn out to be like your first really true love. Not the infatuation with a beautiful young girl type of thing. I mean the first really true love of your life. In the beginning, you can never understand what anyone might see in her. She's not flashy or anything, and then one day you get hit over the head, and for the rest of your life, you'll never forget her. I think you'll find that about the Tarawa if things work out. And that's just the start. Then
that's Jason just getting you warmed up.
Jason followed. For whatever reason, they're told that there's going to be this space battle, and he has this internal monologue about how all of his friends are going to be cubed space feet.
Yeah.
And then he checks out the ensign as he's walking away and gets caught by his ex-girlfriend.
Who's right behind him.
He was told to follow the young ensign, trying not to notice the rather provocative sway to her walk. Wow. He suddenly felt as if he was being watched in turn and looked over his shoulder to see Svetlana following him. Damn, she must have known he was checking the ensign out, and his features flushed with embarrassment.
It's like, how are you checking her out? Like,
elevator? Yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah, elevator
Woman
eyes.
standing in front of me in a baggy Wing Commander uniform.
Yeah. Well, she's on the Admiral's staff, so I'm sure that must mean something else.
And then, of course, Svetlana and Bear get together.
And then there's also that moment where that little interaction with Sparks on the flight deck.
Oh, yes. Planting seeds.
Yes, I didn't even write that one down.
Yeah, the planting seed about when there's the tinge of jealousy.
And that comes straight out of Wing Commander 2. Remember, there's a scene in Wing Commander 2 where Blair, player character, goes up to Sparks and is like, "Nice fuselage, Sparks." And she's like, "Thank you, sir." And I was talking about the Saber.
Oh my god. That's going to get you some serious time, the brig.
And then, of course, Bear and Ivanova get back together, and we have Perfume, what a Marine? Come on, just shut up and follow my orders, she said as she started to unzip his flight suit. It's this total high school sex fantasy, just hinted at stuff.
Would have made that even more perfect right there, though, because I think the Perfume's honeysuckle, where if this is that era of the 90s, it really should have been like cucumber melon. For those of us old, right? That's the smell of that era.
But think about Fortune. Honeysuckle is more his speed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we have chapter 7 where they leave and she's going to go to the battle. And I noted it down because it's one of those like stealth, she's naked things where you don't realize she's naked until she puts her dress on or her blouse on. But I pulled this quote out. Like, she sighed, reaching over the top side of her bed to pick up her fatigue blouse, which was on the floor. She held the collar up and pressed her insignia button. She has a Star Trek communicator. It's just casually mentioned she's using a Starfleet communicator. And Bill would go on to write a Star Trek novel, Next Generation. It's called Forgotten War, and it essentially turns all these Star Trek characters into his presets. Picard is obsessed with World War II, and Riker's a historian, and it's a hell of a lot of fun as long as you don't care very, very deeply about Star Trek being anything like Star Trek.
Jesus. I think the last kind of horny thing to mention is that everyone in Strike Force Valkyrie knows that the two of them are doing it, and everyone mentions it to Jason. Or tries to help get him laid at different times. Yes. Like, hey, David Allen Greer. Now I can picture David Allen Greer.
Very interested, invested in their relationship.
Yes. And everybody knows. Like, Grierson somehow knows on the Intrepid. And, the juiciest gossip travels the fastest. Who is telling the captain that the wing commander of the Tarawa is hooking up with the talker of the First Commandos?
Good question.
I mean, they got a lot of time on their hands during this run, but that's a lot of time.
So, any other thoughts about this part of Endron? What you're looking forward to? What you hated? Just anything else to say before we?
There's lots of little cool references all throughout. Using a saber as a shuttle. The blast damage on the Concordia. Just great, cool little things.
It's those world building details because, as a novel, it's so fan fiction fantasy. Yeah. The guy everyone likes did the best thing, but as a chunk of concentrated world you're dropping into the fish tank, it's amazing.
Yes. And this is one of the things where I just, Fleet Action has a lot more intense events, a little bit more drama, but I've just always been drawn to end runs. Very simple. Here are here are like 2 or 3 battles. Here's a run afterwards. And it's just hyper focused on that, and there's no other extra meat and details on it.
Anybody else have
one thing I was a little disappointed was what happened to Starlight? Like, she almost no mention of her in these 4 chapters at all.
I think because she's constantly running the recon force, and doesn't she fly by him once?
There is a mention of Starflight in there. Man. She has a line early on, and I can't remember what it is, but
oh yeah, she does say something.
I will say this is a common problem with his background characters. They often he will set them up and they'll seem sort of interesting and they'll get a couple of references, but we never develop them any further. It's the same with Mongrel and
that's nothing.
And Chamberlain.
Yeah.
Chamberlain gets a couple of call outs. Mongrel, I think, will get like a mention and then he's gone.
Does he show? Yeah, he shows up in Not to spoil.
Yes. Starlight loaned the perfume to Ivanova. That's one thing.
Yeah, and then as Bear is going out, I think towards the moon is when Starlight is coming back. Except she's missing a wingman because that's another one of his counting monologues.
Yeah.
When he's starting to keep track of how many he's lost.
But honestly, we're never going to get a good background for Starlight. That's all there is really to her. She's a woman that Jason knows.
I don't know her.
Yeah, it's just weird because in the first 4 chapters, you kind of get the feeling that she's going to be more important, but then she just vanishes completely.
Yeah, and honestly, Doomsday is the same way. We see very little of him, and it gets a lot more noticeable in Fleet Action, which we're going 5 or 6 books down the road, but our characters who we care about get this same treatment. Kevin and Doomsday, he very much has this like barn he puts them in where they're there, but you're not really hearing about them.
Well, they come out to do their morning walk, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to compare it, but Forstchen seems to work a lot like Alfred Hitchcock, where the characters are secondary to the plot. He just kind of sets them up. He wants them to go through the motions. This is where he needs them. He uses them, and then they're just pushed aside for the next scene.
The characters are either very, very, very good, or very, very, very bad, or you never hear about them again.
Yes.
But the scene is what's important. The context is what's important. Not so much, I don't want to say not so much motivation, but It's less about characterization, more about the greater good or the greater goal or, broader strokes.
All right. Well, next time we do this, will be in 2 weeks, and we're going to finish. I think there's 3 more chapters in End
Oh,
Run.
I thought you meant book club. I was like, what the hell? What's next week? And then, I gotcha.
2 weeks for the next book club. The next 3, I think it's 3. It's either 3 or 4 chapters of End Run.
Yep.
Finish up the book and talk about what we're going to do after this. But thank you all for coming out. This is like the most exciting part of my night is just hearing people talk about the Wing Commander novel seriously.
Yeah, it's great to have everybody here because usually, we're just sitting around, and now,
And look, we've kept it in a tight 4 hours. So
well, I was about to point out that you had a guess for length, I had a guess for length, and they were wrong by a lot. I said 2.5. I think you said 3. We're at 3 3/4.
So I'm going to disconnect from the book club channel, but thank you all for coming out. I love doing this.
It's awesome.
It's awesome. Yeah,
I totally agree.
Off. And with that, I will say that's all, folks. I mean, he's not that one. So let's. Anyway, as we said last time, my space helmet off.
Yeah.
As we said earlier in the show, next week's going to be the 20th anniversary of the Wing Commander movie. It's also the not 20th anniversary, but the several hundredth anniversary of the Jason incident. Again, different Jason, but
not me.
It's the incident that starts the humanity's contact with Kirathis. We'll be talking all about that next time. We're going to do not a book club, but we're going to do a movie watch. So we'll have that same screen. We'll have the Discord voice, and we'll invite anybody who wants to talk through the movie to come along and watch with us. And we'll have some other
you're getting super fancy.
Cool treats and fun stuff. It's going to be really good. Until then, my love to all of you. Have a great happy Wing Commandering.
See you, Starside.
Yeah, neither of those landed. All right, here's our credits.
Hi, I'm Dr. Clyde Burrows from the Omnicron Institute. The Hellcat spaceships the crew flew this week may just be science fiction, but the idea behind them is more real than you'd think. Real space planes can either take off vertically or launch from an airborne mothership, then glide to land like a terrestrial plane. The first successful space plane was the North American X-15, which began rocketing test pilots to the edge of the atmosphere in 1965. The technology developed by the X-15 allowed larger, more advanced space planes to be built, including the most successful to date, the Space Transport System Orbiter Vehicle, better known as the Space Shuttle. See you on the next exciting episode of All Wings Considered.